That was one of the express purposes of this. And this is important because it really lays out what the Constitution encompasses for the government of we the people. And then they go on to say, in order to form a more perfect union, there were so many issues involved with the Articles of Confederation that they really deemed, the Founding Fathers deemed it necessary to rectify some of the problems that had occurred in the Articles of Confederation, and that's why the Constitution was written. They wanted to provide a common defense for the country, united, and not just state by state, and to promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of the country for the people. And so for us and for our posterity, that's what's so very important, is that we need to we want to reach into the future with this. And that's what is so great about the Constitution, that it's a very durable instrument, and it can last, a lifetime and more. So anyway, rather than ramble on, I'd like to hand this out to people. If they'd like one, you can have one. And I've got a poster too. I thought you all might like to have this to place in the front of the building, so everybody here can see and understand. It's really more of an awareness situation. So because we do have the 250th anniversary of the country, the United States of America, that's coming up, and will be celebrations will begin in 2 years. So we really want to kind of build the momentum for learning and understanding and reacting in accordance with the Constitution. So I thank you for your time, each and every one of you, and God bless America.
Thank you very much. And John, you've got that one.
I do. Proclamation, Constitution Week, September 17th to the 23rd, 2023. Whereas September 17th, 2023 marks the 236th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Kent County, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd, 2023 as Constitution Week, and call upon all citizens of Kent County to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. Signed, the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, Ronald H. Fithian, President, Albert H. Nickerson, Member, John F. Price, Member.
Would you like to have a picture? Yes. Okay. September is obviously a very busy month, and I don't think in all my years I've had this many proclamations at one meeting, but they're all very, very informative and very meaningful. The next one is, it's got Basil Witkowski, who is the exalted ruler, and Karen Stevens is the Americanism Chair of Chestertown Elk Slides number 2474. And I see several of the members in the audience. So, Basil, if you'd like to say something, we have a proclamation prepared, and if you'd like to say something ahead of
I
time.
think we will, if, I guess, my chairwoman is, there. The Elks are a national fraternal organization. It's, they were founded in 1868, so they're 153 years of age. At the present time, they consist of about 1,900 lodges in the country, in every state in the country, and a membership of approximately 880,000, give or take. It varies from year to year. Their primary purpose is to assist the communities that the lodges, respective lodges are in, our youth, and our veterans. These are the three primary purposes. We've been in existence since 1972, and we have about 450 members, maybe a little bit more. And I guess we try to do charitable work both through the schools, our youth, through various programs, scholarships, and obviously donations to the needy and the community at large. Our Grand Lodge has asked each individual lodge in the country to have a National Elks Patriotic Week designation. We also are very patriotic. Flag is the symbol of our patriotism, and it is incorporated in our purpose and philosophy. So our chairperson is Karen Stevens, who's done a great job. She was involved with Kent Goes Purple last, and then we had a booth. Drug awareness is very principal to our program. So, Karen, if you have any words to say, over and above.
Just that, God bless America.
And I think with respect to 9/11, we had a program at the lodge last Sunday, and there again, I think it's very important for all Americans to remember and never forget 9/11 and the ramifications. As I think some earlier presidents have said, freedom is one generation away. So it's important that we maintain the aura of going forward and what this country stands for. So that's what patriotism is about.
And I did want to say that we do want to always remember and honor and respect all first responders and veterans for all they've done for us, because freedom isn't free. Someone paid a lot for that.
Okay, thank you. Kent County, Maryland proclamation, Patriotism Week, September the 10th to the 16th, dated 2023, says, whereas the Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks through its Constitution is a patriotic order, and whereas the order promotes the ideals that the citizens of this nation live in freedom, won through the great sacrifices and many tribulations which have provided the foundation for a free, prosperous, and independent life. And whereas we realize that each generation must work to maintain this freedom, otherwise, through carelessness or indifference, the rights and liberties enjoyed may vanish. And whereas it is fitting and proper to recognize this freedom and to honor the nation which provides it. Now, therefore, we, the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, join the nation and hereby proclaim September the 10th through the 16th, 2023, as Patriotism Week in Kent County, and recognize and acknowledge the importance of bringing awareness to our community. Signed, the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, Ronald H. Fithian, President, Albert H. Nickerson, Member, John F. Price, Member, dated September the 12th, 2023, and it's their privilege to present this to the Elks on behalf of the citizens of Kent County. And if you'd like to have a picture and bring up the rest of your group.
Yes, sir. And you are an Elk member as well, so. Getting in it.
Okay, everybody, looking this way. Okay. Okay, very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank
our pleasure.
Thank you, Albert. Good to see you.
I'm going to go out of order here just a tad. Mike, let's take care of the Bayside Public Landing event.
Okay. We received a request for use of the bulkhead at Bayside. It's for an event, the Bike Fest, and it's scheduled for October 15th. One of the requests, because of the success of the event, is they would like to use part of the Bayside Marina landing for bike parking. So we've been working with them to come up with a plan for what they've had. I'm working with Hal, and he's here with the Sons of American Legion to answer any questions you have. But the arrangements we've got is they want to use the upper parking lot where we have the trailer parking and then back parking for the slips to park their bikes. And what they'll do is they have volunteers that will help line up the motorcycles so that they can be in a good order and utilize the space as much as possible because of the amount of participation. In addition to that, they've got some private property that's right there that is also allowing parking to go there. So it works for us because there'll still be parking for the slips, for the charter, and they will maintain access to the loading ramp. So it'll work out well for that. So we have no objection to that. We just need your recommendation for approval to be able to utilize the Bayside for this particular event, Marina. So if you had any questions that guard, Al brought in after our meeting the other day to the application. The application's complete. It's got the insurances, the layout, and I believe Rock Hall on Thursday will be having their meeting to approve the permit for it as well. Do you have any questions from me or for the representatives? We're good.
Howard, all that suits, I mean, that's satisfactory to you?
It does. Mike and I met yesterday, and I think we came to an agreement. We will be monitoring the parking on that side where the landing is, and it was unanimous between the Sons of the American Legion and the Legion Riders, Post 228, that the bulkhead would actually be a better location. It gives us more room and less interference with the boaters and everything. So we think that's a good location.
Very good.
Yeah, and we'll have electric there at the bulkhead because they'll have, was the band in another place you need electric for, 2 spots.
Band
and one of the vendors.
Oh, the vendors, okay. do that. And then we can also provide some traffic cones and things like that, if that helps in terms of organizing where the motorcycles would go and park.
Very good.
Okay? So do you have a consent or motion to approve use of Bayside Marina for the event as outlined in their application?
Then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the use of the Bayside Marina and the Bulkhead for the Bike Fest event on October 15, 2023, subject to the following conditions which have been discussed here today.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Clifford P. Coppersmith, President, and Karen Smith, Vice President of Administrative Services of Chesapeake College. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Mr. President, Commissioners, it's a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you for your time. About a year and a half ago, we discussed with our supporting counties the possibility of a renovation project to actually replace the existing Queen Anne's Tech building on campus. That building was built in 1979. It is now way beyond its natural life. And so the project would actually be a replacement project, which is still considered a renovation by the state, but we would be actually replacing the current structure. That structure would be demolished, and the space where it currently is would be returned to green space as part of the project. Where we're at this time in the process is we are seeking letters of intent from our counties to proceed to the next step, which is for the state to receive this project on a list that has currently been composed by the Maryland Higher Education Commission. The project's been granted number 6 priority in the state after 4 projects that are currently under construction, and of course ours, which would be the second project in terms of the planning stages. The letter of intent, as I understand it, is not a binding document. It simply indicates the county's support for the project and intent to pursue a budgetary process when that arrives, once the state has funded the project. The state pays for 75% of the project. Our local counties split up among the 5 according to their population, sharing that 25% match. You have a document in front of you, and I do believe we have a presentation that outlines the different aspects of our presentation this morning. I'd just like to point out that the programs that will be housed in this building will combine the programs currently housed in both the Queen Anne's Tech building and the MTC, the Manufacturing Trade Center, and include electrical, welding, advanced manufacturing, which is a new program for us, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, HVAC, agriculture, the construction trades, marine trades, their culinary program, and of course offices and suitable spaces for staff and faculty. We also would like to house the Small Business Development Center, the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which will be a new program that the college will be adopting to help support small businesses, including our students that intend to go into their own businesses with their technical skill trade that they enter into, and also that would be a resource for the community in the years after. And of course, the Workforce Investment Board, which is currently located on campus, but we'd like to have it in this building since so many of the students that benefit from the programs out of the WIB do pursue these skilled trades. On the handout, you'll see basically a tentative schedule for construction, the various design phases and so forth. The plan currently calls for a 90,000 square foot gross facility at a cost of just over $79 million. Now what I'd like to do is have Karen Smith go through the aspects of the financial obligation potentially would be taken on by the counties. And of course, we're willing to answer any questions you might have about this presentation.
Could someone flip through the presentation? Oh, you have it back there? Okay, sorry. So I'm on the part where it lists out the total project. It has design, construction, and contingency.
Next. Okay, one more. There you go.
There you go. So the total project is what Dr. Coppersmith mentioned, a little over $79 million. The state shares in 75% of it, and 25% is met up by local funding. The project is divided into 3 stages: design, construction and contingency, and then furniture and equipment. A project of this size, the construction could run from 18 to 22 months. Some projects go just about a year. This would be a little bit longer than that. Design usually runs about a year. The next slide shows the actual split for the counties. Kent's County share is 11.1% of the total, and that total is $2.1 million. And again, it is over for, design would be, if approved in this session with the governor's budget, design would be in fiscal year '25, construction would be '26, '27, and furniture and equipment after that, just depending on the length of the construction. And the last document we have there is actually the letter of intent that the MHEC is looking for. And it is just a letter of intent that shows the county's support for the project. DBM is meeting to discuss all the projects that are on the list on September 28th. So we are looking to have, if we can get those, the letters of support on or before September 28th of this year. Any
Okay,
questions?
and I think we're probably going to have to, not have to, but we're probably going to have a meeting with our, all 5 counties to discuss.
I understand that's certainly possible. I've been in conversation with Larry Porter about that possibility. I'm not quite sure how the logistics of that will work, but that is certainly an aspect of the process that we could expect to see happen with the
We'll
counties.
keep in mind the date of the 28th and try to make sure we can get at least, we want to hear from our partners in
Sure.
partner counties as far as if there are any concerns or whatever. So, and we'll keep that date of the 28th in mind as hoping to get something done prior to that.
That would be excellent. And just kind of in review, we had this presentation with Caroline County last week. There's unanimous support there with the condition that they are looking for unanimous support across the 5 counties to proceed. We meet with Queen Anne's County this evening. We do anticipate an actual vote of support there. And we met with the leadership of Talbot County yesterday, and they indicated very strong support. They will be taking it up on the 26th of September, which is their next meeting after tonight. We couldn't make this all work in one day. So they're actually presenting the material to their council this afternoon, but we anticipate full support in Talbot. And then last but not least, Dorchester. We're meeting with Dorchester's leadership tomorrow at 1 o'clock. But at this point, we see fairly consensus and support across the 5 counties for the project.
Very good. And I do want to say that the trades that you provide, the trade schools that you provide, they are extremely important to the area. We really appreciate all that, and it seems like it's well received throughout the whole community. The idea of welding and all the trades schooling that you provide. So thank you for all that.
The whole country is shifting to workforce. It's a absolute need, if not a crisis. As we all know, that the average age of many of our technical people out there is getting up there into the mid and upper 50s. And it's really critical that we start replacing our skilled tradespeople with, young people and of course, adults that are seeking to change their careers and so forth. And that's basically what we've been about the past 5 years.
Thank you. Anybody else want to
I just want to say that it seems pretty exciting to me, and I am one of those lower 50s people that you're trying to replace. But I think I'm excited for the Eastern Shore to have this opportunity. So hopefully we can get this ball rolling for you.
This is a generational thing. It's a regional project, and obviously we're hoping to keep up with our neighbors. Warwick brought on a new building just this past summer. I would love to take a tour of our local county leaders down to see that facility, which very much represents what we would like to establish at Chesapeake. And Arundel just built a new facility in the last couple of years, and of course Del Tech across the border in Delaware also has very state-of-the-art facilities for these type of programs. And we really would like to keep up with our neighbors, but also obviously provide an enormous resource for our citizens right here in the region which we serve.
Well, we'll try to put some type of a meeting together sooner than later, so we can all sit around and discuss the project together as a group.
We're perfectly willing to host that if that's appropriate, and, you know, of course, I'm available, as is Karen and other leaders of the college, to respond to any questions that this commission or any other county governments have in the region.
Very good. John, you got any? Okay.
Thank you very much,
We'll
Mr.
be-
President.
We'll be in touch as soon as we can get, find a date that suits everybody, and maybe we'll be in touch with you.
And I'll keep Shelley updated on the progress we're making with all our counties as we make it. Thank you very much.
Thank
Very
you.
good, thank you. Mr. Pete Landon, Director for the Office of Emergency Services, Kent County Preparedness Month. And yeah, I see, Pete, you brought your #1 weatherman with you.
Yes, our emergency planner, Brian Pearsall, and weather person. First of all, I want to thank you, Mr. President, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing us to be here today. It's kind of fitting as the Director of Emergency Services that I'm sitting here. We've heard from a couple other speakers just a day after recognizing the attacks on America from September 11, 2001. Sitting with all of you, I can bet that I certainly did. Everybody yesterday, as I saw a snippet on the news, reflected upon or thought about where we were when we heard the news or saw one of the towers falling down. And I think that's the preamble I'd like to give you for why we're here today, and letting you know that since the terror attacks, the country has recognized September as National Preparedness Month. The state recognizes it, and I'm really excited to see that Kent County is going to recognize it as well. Again, the theme for 2023 is Take Control 1, 2, 3, and it just kind of lets us remember that if we don't plan preparedness, we might as well plan for failure. It's something that we've taken very seriously. Brian was working on the plan that's before you before I got here, and we kind of finished it up. I'm really excited that the commissioners are considering or will be recognizing September 23 as Kent County Preparedness Month. And it just kind of reminds everybody that emergencies, disasters can happen at any time, at any place, to anyone. So with that, again, I'm pleased to be a part of recognizing September as Kent County Preparedness Month. And I'm really even further pleased that you're signing the 2023 Kent County Emergency Preparedness Plan, because it kind of gives everybody, whether you're a citizen, the government, a visitor to Kent County, kind of a way of knowing that we're ready to take on whatever it could be in a preparedness fashion, and just getting life back to the way it was before, being resilient.
Very good.
I have a proclamation.
Commissioner Nickerson will read the proclamation.
It's a proclamation, Kent County Preparedness Month, Take Control 1, 2, 3, September 2023. Whereas National Preparedness Month has occurred annually in September since September 11, 2001, and is also recognized as Maryland Preparedness Month. And whereas Take Control 1, 2, 3 serves as a reminder that we must take action to plan and prepare now and throughout the year for the types of emergencies that could affect us where we live, work, visit, and whereas when individuals take responsibility for preparing their families and their communities, the chance of survival and returning to normalcy following a disaster is greatly increased. And whereas the Kent County Office of Emergency Services encourages all residents, visitors, businesses to plan and prepare for all hazards before they happen. This month serves as a timely reminder that emergencies can happen anywhere at any time without advance notice. The time to prepare is before the disaster happens. And whereas all residents of Kent County, Maryland are urged to plan ahead for disasters by participating in neighborhood preparedness activities, registering their contact information in the Code Red mass notification system, and visiting the county's preparedness campaign social media outlets. Now, therefore, we, the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, do hereby support the nation in proclaiming September 2023 as Kent County Preparedness Month and call on all government agencies, private organizations, businesses, and the people of Kent County to develop their own preparedness plan and work together toward creating a stronger, more resilient community. Signed, the County Commissioners of Kent County, Maryland, Ronald H. Fithian, President, Albert H. Nickerson, Member, and John F. Price, Member. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. You want to have a picture with the proclamation?
I don't think.
Sure would be nice to go on the Facebook page.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
That's what the weather's for.
Formally adopt the plan. I think we did the proclamation, but I don't think we adopted.
Correct. I believe we still have half the agenda item.
Right, right. We did the proclamation, but we haven't officially adopted the plan yet.
Good morning. Good morning. You have before you the 2023 Kent County Emergency Preparedness Plan. It just sets a framework for what the government, citizens, businesses, and visitors to Kent County should expect, not only preparing but responding to and then recovering from an emergency. I certainly don't need to read the 68 pages of the plan, but I can assure you that Brian Pearsall, our emergency planner, and I are available at any time to answer any questions, concerns that you might have. I can tell you a lot of work went into this plan from not only Brian, myself, but actually County Administrator Heller and Tom Yeager, our county attorney, in the formulation of and the approval of the plan. And I would request and or recommend that you sign it, enacting it.
Very good. Any questions from either? Then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we sign the plan as presented.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Rosemary Granilla, Director of Kent County Local Management Board. FY 2024 Safe Summers Grant Award Agreement.
Thank you. This is to sign the grant agreement. Last time I presented to you all, it was the application. They have received the application and accepted it, and they are requesting our approval to move forward with implementing the grant.
Real briefly, how about just for everybody, just tell us a little bit about what this is.
This grant is additional funding for what we had planned with the board to do a program called Teen Spaces. One of the priorities of our board was to fund more opportunities for adolescents to have safe and healthy places to gather, socialize, learn new skills, and just kind of get back to normal after COVID. And we had approved a small amount of funding through our community partnership agreement toward 3 proposals that we received from different community organizations. One was the Hip Hop Time Capsule that ended at the end of July with Washington College, and I think they had 16 students. They were paid student internships that they participated in to learn more about the county history and actually produce their own creative pieces, produce music and spoken word. Really, I would recommend you checking out the website of the work that they actually produced. You can listen to it anytime. on the Chesapeake Heartland website. And so this money will pay for that, the activities that happened in July. And the other award is for Menary's Dream Alliance. They're hosting monthly teen events and trips throughout the year, starting in July, going through next June. And the third one is Choptank Talamato Legacy Project. They're doing kind of art fellowships at the high school where the students will be able to participate in murals or other creative endeavors that they are able to kind of co-create with the staff of Choptank Talamato Legacy Project. And so while we had awarded small amounts through our community partnership agreement, this award was kind of a windfall that came at the, after July, to really be able to build those out and make them much more robust as we had initially kind of dreamed when we requested proposals back in January.
Thank you, very nicely done.
Thanks.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the grant award agreement for FY 2024 Safe Summers Program Teen Spaces Activity Awards.
Got a motion, do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make sure you come to some of the events.
Next up, we have Jamie Williams, the Director, and Rose Osborne, Administrative Specialist, Economic and Tourism Development.
Good morning.
Good morning. Still morning. Good morning. So we have departmental update first. So we have two things we just want to cover in that real quick. One is the shuttle statistics were shared for the month of August, and just some insight from Rick's data that he's collecting. Delmarva Craft is the vendor that is providing the summer seasonal shuttle, and he, just an odd month. The first week in August and the last week were down, but the two middle weeks were up. He thinks that partially has to do with Pirates and Wenches event. And he did notice that he's not seeing as many group trips from the Western Shore marinas as last year. So he makes some notes, which is great, on the statistics to kind of help us understand what the demand is. Rick and I will be following up in the next month or so to kind of do a recap of how the season went and where we go from here. So any questions about the seasonal shuttle statistics or program? Okay. The other thing we want to give an update on, and this is Rose's, Rose is going to do the presentation, but short-term rentals has been an ongoing issue. And I just want to share before we get into it, there's so many tentacles for short-term rentals. You really got to focus on like what is it that you're trying to accomplish, because if not, we'll never get anything done. Because we've got the ordinance side and regulation and safety and licensing and registration, and then you've got the collection of the tax revenue for the lodging. And we are really focused on the tax revenue and the lodging. Two reasons. One is because the towns and the counties need that revenue. The county commissioners support economic and tourism development with a budget every year, and we promote the county as a destination, and we need that funding to continue to do that. And in addition to that, part of the state grant comes from the increase in lodging revenues. So it is important that we are collecting it and reporting it accurately to the state so that we can pay for those services that are provided through county government.
So I have been working on this project since about the middle of June. Started off with a basic spreadsheet that has led to my notebook full of looking at the different platforms. So starting with Airbnb, VRBO, the main ones that everybody's aware of. It gets a little difficult because each platform, the listing property might be under a different description. So that's why I've resorted to photographs and trying to link them together. So I'm going to throw a bunch of numbers out. Total, I have discovered 227 total Airbnbs or short-term rental properties throughout the municipalities and the county. 92 of those properties are currently paying taxes or that I can confirm are paying taxes. 135 I have not been able to confirm as of today that they are. It is an ongoing process. I've been through, Millington had one and everything was in compliance there. Galena has none within the township. And so we just finished up with Chestertown. I'm still sorting out a few properties. Total, in the county, we have 77 properties, 51 that are non-paying, 26 that are paying. To give you an idea on the revenue, for one night of rental for the properties that I've identified, we're losing, it's a total revenue of $25,190. And if I take that further, the total tax revenue that's being lost is $1,259.50. Doesn't sound very large.
Per day.
Yes, per day. And from some of the platforms that we've looked at, I have been able to determine most properties have anywhere 50, 60, 80% occupancy. So if I go at a low scale and I take 35% occupancy, takes us to 127 3/4 of a day total, times the revenue, that's a total of $3,218, $3,218.22 in total revenue, which translates in lost tax revenue, $160,901. I still have 50 properties that I don't have dollar amounts that they charge for their daily rental, so those numbers are going to fluctuate. I also have several that I've not actively confirmed. Some could be duplicate entries that I have on my spreadsheet. But my projection is that number will go higher instead of lower. We have met with the town of Betterton and Chestertown. We did not need meetings with Galena and Millington. We do have meetings scheduled with the platforms that offer programs, software that will do the legwork of what I'm doing manually here. We have met with or had webinars with 2 of them, and we still have 2 of them on our books to meet with.
So just a question, when you were talking about there's a certain amount of them that are paying, and then we have obviously some that you haven't been able to, are you saying that some of your Airbnbs are paying lodging tax?
Some of them are, yes.
Some of them are?
Yes. We have a spreadsheet that the county finance office provided for those properties that are in compliance and paying tax. And then from my findings of all these additional properties with ones that are not paying taxes, I cannot confirm that they're on the list, on the county's list.
A few of the challenges I'll just point out with what Rose is doing and why this takes so much time. It'll say in the vicinity of, it doesn't give us a physical address, so there's a lot of legwork that goes into trying to identify the properties. She's using Google Maps and looking at houses and zooming in on the house number, those types of things. In addition to that, the spreadsheet we currently use doesn't have property addresses on them, so we're not, that when she says we can't confirm or that they are or aren't, we need to do some more homework to research and kind of marry the two together to ensure that we're calculating everything properly. So just want to make, it's not as easy as one would think, so I just wanted to point out some of the challenges that we face, and we're just trying to figure out better ways to do it. The ultimate goal with this is to be able to say, this platform will, and we're going to do it with all 4 platforms, to say what their capabilities are, what the annual cost of it is, and then make a proposal. Is this something we want to move forward with? In my mind, we want to come up with a platform that doesn't cost as much. We want the revenue to pay for that and more. So we want the revenue to be more for the county as well as for the municipalities, and not have to, and be able to collect more revenue. It's not that we want, that it's not that we just want to tax people. It becomes an equity issue with the bed and breakfasts and the hotels and the Airbnbs that are paying it. So if it's a tax and everybody should be paying it, it should be a level playing field. And in addition to that, like I said, we are doing the work as a county of marketing Kent County as a destination. And marketing is not cheap. So that money comes back to the county for the properties that are in the county. So we need to make sure that that's where it should be.
We have to collect taxes uniformly. We just can't pick and choose and say,
Correct.
okay, we'll collect from you, we're not gonna collect from you.
Correct.
We have to collect them
That
across
was
the
really
board.
the crux of my question. I mean, if some people are paying and some aren't, is there a law that says they're supposed to be? Or are
Okay.
these people that are paying them just voluntarily?
Let me answer a couple of questions. So yes, so we've got 6 different entities, jurisdictions, the county and the 5 municipalities. One municipality has nothing on the books, but they don't have any. The towns the town of Chestertown has an ordinance, the town of Millington has an ordinance, Betterton has some regulations, and Rock Hall has a licensing process that they go through. So each jurisdiction does it a little bit differently. I do have a question. I know that through the
The
comprehensive.
question was, the lodging tax
Correct.
applies to everything.
Yes.
It's a short-term rental, so it doesn't matter if you call yourself a hotel, you call yourself a bed and breakfast, or you call
Yeah,
yourself
it's
an
still short-term
Airbnb.
rental.
The tax applies equally to all.
Correct.
Our ordinance
Less than 4
applies to all
months.
of the above.
Correct.
So they should all be paying.
So I do have a question. Is short-term, the way I understood it, and I could be wrong, and maybe Shelley, this could help, and I think Bill's here too.
Less than
So
30
this would be
days.
great. Ours actually is going to say 4 months. Is it in the current code? Because I know that there is zoning ordinance to put it in that if they don't comply, that they'll be in violation. So this is where I kind of need help understanding that as well. This is another one of those tentacles of short-term rentals. So
Yeah.
this is a good question.
It's like some municipalities require rental properties to be registered.
Correct.
And inspected, others do not.
Correct.
So there's 2 things at play. One is the tax, and the tax doesn't
Correct.
really depend on zoning. If it's a short-term rental, the
Right.
business has to pay it. The other thing, I think what you're saying is, if you're delinquent in tax,
If
can
you're in
that trigger a
violation.
zoning violation?
There you go, exactly. That's good, yep. So this helps.
It'll take a little bit.
That's okay. And we can go
Continue
back
on
to,
with the
Shelley,
conversation.
so we still have work to do. The basis of this is we still have work to do. It's probably going to be another 30 days before we come back to you when we've had all of those meetings. And we actually have a meeting with, Huntingfield Inn, and we're going to be talking to them about how they use these platforms and how they remit taxes and all of that, so that we get an inside understanding of it. We're also going to meet with the other 2 platforms, so we can work with Shelley and Bill to make sure we understand the other components of it as well as we move forward.
And how much time do you need to do that?
I would say another 30 days, we should be able to have everything.
A platform, a software platform?
And have them evaluate it and be able to present something. Yeah.
Well, that's an awful lot of money that, and this has been going on for way, way too long, in my opinion. And I agree that if we're talking about tax money, that it needs to be fair and consistent across the board. And I believe a lot of the incorporated towns are not happy because they're not getting their money as well. And if you get the right platform, software platform, and it's gonna pay for itself, to me, that's a no-brainer.
So one other complication in this discussion is our agreement with each of the 5 municipalities regarding the hotel tax. It is different from town to town, and
Another
I think
tentacle.
that needs to be finalized and
Yeah.
standardized.
So it's different on how much the county gets and how much they get? Well, see, that should be consistent too.
Yeah, that's something else we do have it on our list. Gary was able to provide all that information, and Shelley provided it to us as well. So it's something else we'll be bringing forward. But that's, again, another one of those tentacles of this, and it gets overwhelming. So, because you start down a path and then you're like, oh, but what about this? And what about that? So we're trying to really focus just on the tax itself first and a platform to manage it, and then move forward with some of the other issues, but that's exactly one of the issues.
Do you happen to know what the percentages are for the different municipalities?
Not off the top of my head.
We do have it.
Do you
I
have
do know that
Percentages that the county
the
gets.
town of Chestertown and Rock Hall,
I think, if I'm not mistaken, everybody, it's split the same with everybody except one town.
Chestertown and Rock Hall get 100% of the tax revenue, less 5% administrative fee.
Right.
The county keeps what's in the county. Betterton, Galena, and Millington are all a little different. They're not the same as Chestertown and Rock Hall. I will say that one of the things that we've been talking about is if we go with this platform, then do we say, okay, 70% and 35% are within the county, then the county should be paying the admin fee for that. And if 40% are in the town of Rock Hall, maybe 40% comes out of their tax revenue to pay for this platform that will, in the end, get them more revenue, not cost them anything. So that's something to consider too as we move down the road with this, but it's just too early for us to kind of say where we want to go with that and exactly what those percentages are.
And I would
Does that
bet
make
the bulk
sense?
of the Airbnbs and short-term rentals are in Chestertown and Rock Hall.
Rock Hall,
Yeah, Rock Hall.
Yep.
For sure.
Rock Hall's
Yep.
number one.
So, our original goal was we were going to do the smallest ones first because that made sense. That kind of got us where we needed to be. And in the meantime, I will say we're not just saying, hey, we're waiting for a platform. Rose is working with Sheila at the town of Betterton to notify the property owners that aren't paying that this is the requirement. So Sheila is sending out notices to those property owners, making them aware of that. And then the next thing is to work with Linda at the town of Chestertown to do the same. So we're still moving forward with doing something manually, but it does take a lot more time.
Yeah, Betterton as a town has been working on identifying the Airbnbs and the Verbos, short-term rentals within the town. Because the town does have Betterton does have a rental ordinance.
Correct.
So they have to be inspected as well, which is a
Correct.
different thing. So I know Sheila's been working on that for some time.
Yep, and that's what Rose and Sheila are working together to make sure that their lists match. And it was weird because, it's just not weird, it's just odd. Some of the ones that were on Sheila's list weren't on Rose's. Some of the ones that Rose found weren't on Sheila's list. So having a platform to identify these properties is important. We did get a presentation that uses artificial intelligence and machine learning, and it was amazing what they can tell. They've got snapshots, it's got the date and time stamp on it, that this person, this property was advertised for short-term rental. It's got pictures, and it mines like thousands of websites every day, and it does every property every day. So they pick up stuff that we might miss because they might not be listed when we look for it. I'll use Huntingfield Inn as an example. They only list on short-term rental platforms when they need to fill rooms. So we're not catching them all with a manual process.
So we'll hear back from you in 30 days or so.
Yes, yes.
All right.
Good luck, Bruce.
Thank you.
Lots of hard work there.
It is a lot of fun.
Right
Did we
here.
ever find out what the definition is?
No, not exactly, but what I did find is who is required to file this form. Any establishment that provides sleeping accommodations for compensation for a period of not exceeding 4 months. So I'd have to do a deeper dive to find more information than that.
The next thing I believe is on the agenda is the Chestertown Hot Desk membership rates. So I will give a little bit of history on this because it goes back. But in 2017, the Eastern Shore Entrepreneurship Center partnered with Kent County to create a business incubator and co-working location in Chestertown. At the time, there were 4 locations. Kent's made 5. And at that time, all membership fees were set, collected, and used by ESAC for membership administration, water and coffee service, and supplies. The county covered the lease, the utilities, and a few supplies like lights and HVAC filters. We did get some funding through the Upper Shore Regional Council, and they do continue to support the Chestertown Hot Desk. The internet service continues to be provided free of charge by Think Big Networks, so we appreciate that partnership. Only 2 locations had dedicated office space, Cambridge and Chestertown. The Cambridge location is located within their Innovation Center, the Eastern Shore Innovation Center, and it offers access to commercial research laboratories, as well as they have an on-site manager there. So Cambridge, they set their dedicated office fees according to the needs and the stage of the business. Chestertown's dedicated office space is $350 a month, and it's just basically that, it's an office. There's not an on-site manager or that availability of a wet lab and things, research lab. In 2022, there were no offices rented, and we had someone come forward, wanted to get a tour of the space and was interested in renting an office to write. And after he got the tour, and I spoke to Mike, who's the executive director of ESAC, we agreed to rent the office for $250 a month, thinking something's better than nothing. So a few months prior to FY23, Mike had approached each location and advised that the Eastern Shore Entrepreneurship Center Board of Directors wanted to pull out of the hot desk operations. So they no longer wanted to collect the fees, do the electronic payments, do the cleaning, the maintenance, the IT, all of that. So we needed to figure out how we would overcome those obstacles. 3 of the 4 locations did raise their membership fees by like $5 in each category to cover the fees that would be associated with the new operators accepting the payments electronically. On August of 2023, the county commissioners approved the Chestertown location operations to be overseen by the Department of Economic and Tourism Development. By December of 2022, most of the obstacles had been addressed. ESAC continued to accept the payments for Kent County until we had our solution in place. In November of 2022, we did start collecting the payments through HubSpot just so that we could track them a little bit better. So then we were able to request reimbursement at the end of February, again in early June, and then our final reconciliation for what ESAC was collecting for Kent County was completed last week, and we are expecting that check any day, so that will be completed. The Office of Finance found a suitable vendor for collecting the payments electronically, and it was ready for members in May of 2023. As of July 1st, 2023, all Hot Desk members are paying through the new software at current rates plus the appropriate service fee. We still have that one member who remains a member, and it's usually there on a daily basis, very helpful in notifying myself or staff if there's an issue on site or something needs attention. And, you know, we recommend that we allow him to continue paying the agreed-upon rate would be the only exception. I will add that allocated from the general fund in FY 2023 to support Chestertown Hot Desk was $10,500. At budget prep for 2024, we estimated about $6,175 from the general fund. So that's down. We now estimate approximately about 50% of that being required. So probably only about $3,500 will need to be supported from the county. The rest will come from membership fees. At a monthly rate, just so you get an idea, at the time of the writing, it was $1,285 a month in revenue. Yesterday, it was $1,405 in revenue. Today, it's $1,280. Memberships are month to month, so no one is committed for a long term. So somebody can come and use it for 5 months if they're waiting on internet to be hooked up at home, or if they want to rent it for 3 months to have some quiet to work on a big project. So there's lots of reasons that people are using the co-working and incubator space, and we feel like it has been a benefit to the community. The accounting changed in FY '24, which will make it much easier with us taking it over and having it all in one account to be able to track it better and see exactly what the county is paying, opposed to what's coming from membership fees. So before I go on to the request, I do want to make I just want to make sure that, and I want to say this publicly because I want the community to understand the goal. The goal is not for Kent County Economic and Tourism Development to manage and run a co-working and incubator space. Washington College has applied for a grant through TEDCO and has received the grant for $100,000 to do a feasibility study for a makerspace that will be located on 800 High Street, the old Dixon property. We would like to, all things fall into place, they're working on the feasibility study, all things fall into place, we would like to partner with Washington College and have them take over that and then just support their efforts. Incubators and co-working spaces work best when they're tied to a university. So Washington College being optimal. You have students, professors, startups, entrepreneurs, community members, all coming together in one space. So my dream is in 2 years not to be the operator of the Chestertown co-working incubator space. But the request before you today is to adopt the attached fee schedule, with the exception of the one office that was rented prior to the county taking over the operation of the location. And the fees and everything are on the website. There's actually a webpage dedicated to it. So if anybody needs help finding that information, we're always happy to help.
Any questions? Can I entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt attached fee schedule with the exception of the one office rental prior to the county taking over operation of the Chestertown hot desk location.
We have a motion, do I have a second? Second. Motion and a second, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Okay, and back on the table, and here are some rack cards. We just got them yesterday. So we do still partner with the other 3 locations. If you're a member of one, you're a member of all 4. So you can visit those at any time. Okay, switch gears. Village of Kennedyville Broker of Opinion. So the Department of Economic Development was tasked with marketing the Village of Kennedyville. However, we don't currently know what the value of that property is. So the county has engaged in several conversations, and when I say the county, in those meetings, county administrator, planning director, public works director, myself, have gotten together, and we did talk to Mary Mears from SVN Miller, real estate broker, and she's also the owner of M3 Strategies, which is an economic development consulting business. And Mary recommended as a first step would be to get a broker opinion of value. And she estimates the cost of that would be $1,500 to $2,000. And the reason it's $1,500 to $2,000 depends on how much work she has to do, because she'll have to engage with county staff and get information, but she could then produce a broker opinion of a value. I did provide 2 copies of that, 2 examples from Mary, as well as her information for M3 Strategies. And what I'm requesting today is just the, yes, we want to go in this direction, or no, that's not what we want to do. We can find the funding within the departmental budget, so I'm not asking for additional funds. I would just be asking to shift some funds. And then she did have a future consideration, which would be more substantial, and at that time I would have to come back to recommend funding. But she recommended, after we do the broker opinion of value, that we do a more detailed evaluation and marketing plan as next steps. The proposal is to develop more affordable housing for its current and future residents through direct consultation of the Village of Kennedyville. This would include direct consultation with county staff and potential developers, and a brief on how to market the project or the property. This contract would be, we're talking $15,000 or $20,000 for that that type of work and would need to be bid and funded outside of the departmental budget. So just wanted to kind of give you some options to kind of move forward with this and see what your thoughts are.
Well, I think it's important that we learn exactly what the value is of that potential project. Because without that, I don't feel that we can move forward with anything.
Oh, I totally agree. You gotta know what you got before you,
Because we have had inquiries, but it's hard to even field those if we don't know what the value is. And you can't market it without value. So,
are there, I mean, this one individual that you've contacted, I mean, are there others that?
there are, and I would get 2 other quotes, yes. But Mary's unique, what is that? Okay. Mary's unique, what she brings to the table is not just the commercial real estate side, but also the economic development consulting side. So, but we have a couple other people that have done both of those as well. So those would definitely be the folks that I would reach out to and get pricing from. And then we'll consider all 3 proposals. And I'll probably get a couple members from the commission to review the proposals to decide which one we go with.
Well, I think you should move forward with doing that personally.
Fine with that. Then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we allow Jamie to move forward with evaluating the value of the property at the Village of Kennedyville.
Second.
And I think once we get to that degree, it would be good to, we want to know what the project is as well. I mean, how many lots is available, how much is available that we don't own, that may or may not be available. I think there's some property still there. And then there's some issues about, when we had someone that was interested in, was in charge of developing that, and then there was some demands that the county made that you gotta, I think there was supposed to be a new well, or there's a pumping station that, I forget exactly, but what all we're trying to recover there. That's gotta be a part of it as well.
Exactly. All of that needs to be considered.
A lot of infrastructure, and we held the former people to these degrees.
Right, they just can't buy lots and sell them. There's gotta be infrastructure, water.
That whole thing's gotta be taken into consideration, yeah.
And I will say, the county has not stopped working with interested parties, because I know that the planning director as well as public works director has been working with someone. So we're still continuing to address those questions and inquiries as we're going through this, but we don't know if that's going to come through or not. So why not at the same time try to get this opinion of value so that we'll at least know what we're looking at?
But we haven't had any actual proposals from people.
Not official proposals, that is correct.
Well, if we do get some proposals, I think
Yes,
we want to see them as well.
absolutely.
Okay.
And that's the goal, to get some proposals and make sure it's meeting the objectives of the county commissioners.
Okay, so there's been a motion to allow Jamie to move forward with that. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. 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 All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
That's all we have unless there's any questions.
Well, just keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller from Human Resources
Good
Director.
morning, ladies, gentlemen.
And Jen White.
I brought along my expert. We have a number of items for you this morning, but the first several are all recruiting items. I'm kind of happy to say that over the last couple of meetings, we've been able to fill a number of positions, or at least make recommendations to you all for conditional offers. I think, assuming the order is the way I have it here.
Yeah.
The first in front of you is a part-time paramedic position. I think you have all the documentation on the candidate, what we've been looking at, and Do they have the spreadsheet as well on the
No, I can
applicants?
provide that
Okay.
if you would like.
We know we have the one sheet that you would receive with this on who the recommended candidate would be. If there's questions, it's probably easier just to say if there's something that, a question about this particular request, we can try to address it that way.
Where does it go, I understand why you need some part-timers,
Yes, sir.
but do we have a number that we put on that, or, I mean,
Yes.
do we, is it 4, or
It's
is it?
4.
4, okay.
And currently, they're needed more than ever. We've, in the, roughly the past month, we've had 2 full-time paramedics leave us. Roughly 2 months, I would say. So there are instances where we're asking our current paramedics to pick up additional shifts. So we need the part-timers more than ever now, in addition to those 2 that we need to backfill.
And we've lost 2 full-time paramedics in
Yes.
the last couple months.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Any idea why with the
Yes.
exit interview?
One, I would say, was a mutual agreement to part ways. The second one was offered more money by a neighboring county. It was also closer for that paramedic as well, in terms of his home, so.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommended candidate for a conditional employment offer.
Got a motion, do I have a second? Second. Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you. The second one in front of you is a full-time paramedic vacancy. This was as a result of a resignation, probably the one Jen was referring to. There was more of a mutual agreement that this individual would move on elsewhere. We found a very qualified candidate to come forth for that. You'll note there is an over-budget item that's addressed, but that has to do with the qualifications of the candidate that Jen was able to source, and working closely with the department, able to secure this particular candidate. So we recommend that you approve a conditional offer of employment for this individual as well.
I'll entertain a motion if there's no questions.
So the amount over budget, do we have any cost savings as a result of the resignations that could be applied to this 11,000, almost $12,000?
There may well have been some salary gap between the one individual leaving and the new person coming on board, and we still have to go through the rest of our process. So it might mitigate a little of that money, but I wouldn't have an exact number in my head at this point.
But it's a good possibility.
Yes, sir. I believe so, yeah. I think whenever you're going through the recruitment process, the individual who left has been gone for, about a month at this point?
I would say roughly 2,
Okay,
closer to
longer
2.
than that. So we have a couple of months' worth of savings on that salary, but there has been some overtime the department's had to utilize, but they've also been using the exempt staff, I think particularly the chief.
Yes.
Who's been picking up a lot of extra hours, at no additional compensation, because that's how that goes, to cover the shifts. So there will be some mitigation that way.
So it's just extra dollars coming out of contingency?
No
No.
additional dollars are needed. Everything can be absorbed by the current budget.
Yeah.
Let me know. Do you have any questions?
No, that was my only question.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommended candidate for a conditional employment offer. And I happen to know this particular person, and she's a very caring individual. I think she's an excellent choice.
I do too. I think it would be a disservice to the county if we did not offer her employment.
Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
She impressed.
Got a motion and a
the
second,
department,
all in
so.
favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you. Third is correctional officer vacancy. think you also have the information in front of
Can
you
I stop
about
you here for a minute on this one? Can we table this till later,
the
this
correctional.
particular one? If you're looking at the supporting documents, I've got some questions that I'd like some clarity on. So
Oh, okay.
if we could table it, I think it might be a good thing at this point.
Would this be something that, not sure procedurally, is this something that would have to go to a closed session
I
to
would
address?
suspect it would be, and we are going to have a closed session, and personnel's on the agenda.
So it depends on what your questions are as to whether you want to address them in closed session or just a call to Jim after. I'm not sure what the.
My questions probably would be more appropriate in a closed session.
Okay. And for tabling, as long as there's no motion to approve or deny the request, it will be tabled. You can just table it in that form. So unless anybody
There's
else
no
wants to
action
make them.
taken today.
Right.
Will we be able to pick this up in the closed session that we're doing today?
We have a personnel closed session.
Okay.
So you're gonna move this item to the personnel closed session.
Okay.
That would be my preference.
So you're gonna defer it to closed session personnel.
We shall do that. Okay, then moving to the next one, as a full-time facility monitor vacancy. Again, you have the documentation for this particular candidate. There's no impact on budget for the salary recommended for this candidate. It's a straightforward item.
I don't quite understand this position where it's located at. And I've looked at.
It's at the community center.
Is
Yes,
it
sir.
the community
Yes, sir.
center?
Yeah.
Okay.
The title kind of throws me sometimes when I read it as well.
And it's a replacement as a result of a resignation.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommended candidate for a conditional employment offer.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda from HR has to do with the Christmas holiday schedule. Jen's welcome to hang around for the conversation. I always like to have backup. This one was kind of a new one for me because I had to actually rely upon my boss to understand the process, but the county grants Christmas Eve and Christmas Day as holidays. And with this year, with the way the timing works out with, I guess it's the Sunday, Monday, is it the Sunday, Monday?
Mm-hmm.
The Sunday, Monday, ordinarily, the Christmas Eve holiday is going to fall on a Sunday anyway, the Christmas Day. So the idea, and I take no credit for this, my boss's idea, and I frankly thought it was brilliant, so I stole it, was to offer up the opportunity to give the employees a chance to use the Christmas Eve holiday as either the 22nd, the prior Friday, or the 26th, the Tuesday after Christmas Day, so that they would still get the holiday that's in policy, but it would also give us the opportunity to have the offices open for business for our customers on both the 22nd and the 26th. Since it's out of the norm of what policy refers to on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day holidays, we're before you to recommend that that be the approach for this year.
Because I'm assuming Christmas falls on a Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's how the timing got.
So your question is, do we use Friday as
It's basically,
as
we
a
could
day
use
off,
Friday
or
as the Christmas
Tuesday, the
Eve.
day
or-
after?
Yeah, we could use the 22nd, or we could allow the staff the
But
option.
do we want to give the people an extra day of Christmas shopping, or you want to give them a day at the end to clean up after it's over?
But
Yeah.
we're giving them an option.
Well,
Yeah.
and what we would propose is actually, if the commissioners approve, it's either you letting the 22nd or the 26th be used, that it become a departmental decision of how they staff for those 2 days.
Well, we want to give them a choice of one or the other. I
Yes.
got you.
I'm sorry if I didn't say
No,
it bad.
that's my fault.
That way, the county offices are open on the 22nd and the 26th. We give the departments an opportunity to staff for both of those days, and they could you know, they could say, okay, half of you can have off on the 22nd, the other half can have off on the 26th, or some combination. We're open for business for our customers, and the employees still get basically the Christmas Eve holiday that they're guaranteed in policy.
I guess my question was, you just answered it, that the department heads are going to handle who can do what, because I was hoping it wasn't going to be us. So,
Yeah, we're going to
very
bring all,
good.
we're
You've
gonna bring all
answered that
250
question.
names before you, and you can draw them out of a hat or something.
Because
yeah.
I was trying to figure out who was going to be angry because they couldn't or couldn't go.
For all those listening, this is all, it's Albert's fault if you don't get the day you want. I'd like to make a motion to provide the employees with the option to choose what day they would like to observe Christmas Eve on, either Friday, December 22nd, or Tuesday, December 26th, in order to have all county departments open for business during both days.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it.
Before we move on about holidays, and I'm just speaking for myself, I don't know how Commissioner Nickerson or Commissioner Fithian feel. I have, since being elected county commissioner, I find this challenging from time to time to meet what I think are the needs of the people of Kent County. Only meeting once a week, especially if there's a holiday and then we skip a meeting. You know, I can see maybe skipping a Tuesday meeting after Christmas, maybe Thanksgiving, and maybe even, well, not even so much Easter. But at least those two major holidays, I can see us maybe skipping a Tuesday meeting. But to me, there's so much going on in this county, so much that we want to get done for the betterment of our county and our people, that I would like to see us consider not taking a Tuesday off after, like Labor Day, for instance.
So in December,
And I know it may cause a staff issue or a problem because of what you got to do to prepare. But
in December, that will be an item on the agenda, is the following calendar year's meeting schedule.
but it's not something we can, well, the next holiday, I guess, is Thanksgiving or
Veterans Day. There's a Columbus Day,
That's not something that we can address
or
now.
Indigenous Peoples' Day.
Or
I mean, you
if we choose
you
to.
can look at the schedule now, and, I mean, we can amend the schedule as needed. Right now, for the rest of this calendar year, the schedule is set, but it can be amended as needed.
I just feel like we have so many irons in the fire, and that sometimes waiting 2 weeks to move something in a positive direction or whatever is not beneficial. And I don't know how.
No, I totally agree with, there was a push a few years ago to only meet every other week, period.
I don't
And
know
I've
anything
fought
about
that tooth and nail, and I think we all signed up to be here on Tuesdays. I make my schedules around them, and I don't miss many. And I just think that when you take the job to sit here, you're supposed to be here on Tuesdays to hear people's concerns, and I expect to be here, and I think that's the way it should be. So some of the smaller holidays, I agree with the sheriff. I think we ought to still be here. If it's nothing more than to come in here and call it to order, and if there's no business, we go home. But to just take them off for the sake of taking them off, I don't think that's what we're here for. I think we're here to serve the people, and especially that the issue that was brought up in the past about only meeting every other week, I just don't agree with it, and I won't agree with that. So I'm with you, the sheriff, John.
I would concur. I mean, it's fine with me, particularly if it doesn't handcuff the staff who will have the day off or whatever. I mean, it's.
Well, and even if it does, I mean, the fact that you know, that maybe we don't do all the details, but there should be a meeting on some of these things. Maybe there doesn't have to be a lot of preparation for it, but we should be here if somebody needs to talk to us about doing something in the county.
And I would point out from an operational standpoint, from HR's perspective, that we, in the past 2 weeks, you all have approved, I think, 8 vacancies, 7 and 1 pending. The next meeting is like 2 weeks away, which means if we have more candidates to present to you, we're going to have another week's lag time. I'd rather see us, certainly see the meetings be weekly as well, because that gives us an opportunity to fill jobs faster.
Well, and when you take off those meetings too, you even got to, suppose there's and we don't have anything scheduled right now, I don't think, but there's legislative days built into this system too, to where you can only make certain decisions on certain legislative days. So if that happens to be one of the days that you take, meetings you're taking off, well, then you could be postponing things more than 2 weeks. It could be 3 weeks. It could be 4 weeks.
And I'll tell you
depending on how it falls.
And I'll tell you from an HR standpoint, just on recruiting alone, we'll lose candidates. We'll lose the candidates we want if we have to wait 2 or 3 or plus weeks before we can extend conditional offers. So, yeah, the idea, I mean, you know, it's not my call about weekly meetings, but if you want my unofficial vote on it, I'd say sure. Let's make sure that we're acting, particularly on the recruiting side, because we need to fill the jobs as timely as possible. That's just one piece.
If the county staff can't get something together for that meeting, you know, we'll just have it the next meeting. But I mean, I just feel like, I'm like Ronnie, I just feel like we should be here on Tuesday. You know, I can see Christmas and Thanksgiving, but the rest of those holidays, I don't need to stay home on Tuesday. My wife would love to see me get out of the house.
So in the upcoming.
No comment. I'm not going there.
I'm sure she's listening.
So through the end of October, there's only one Tuesday that we are currently not scheduled to meet, and that is October 10th. And that is because October 9th is the Monday is a holiday.
That's Veterans Day.
Correct. And maybe the way to deal with this is I can send you an email with the upcoming schedule, and you can take a look at it, and we can revisit this next Tuesday.
Sure.
Is that the easiest thing to do? Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think the next on my list is a departmental update. What I've compiled is some notes since I got on board at the end of February, and it was funny thinking about doing the departmental update because I kind of feel like I'm in front of you all pretty much every week anyway. But some things that have happened since I came on board. Jen came on board a couple weeks after me, and you know, Barb's been on board for a little while now as well. So you get a sense of what's been going on in the department. One of the first things we learned was that we had no backup in the department for fingerprinting for new hires, critical task, but there was only one person certified by the state to do fingerprinting. Obviously, that couldn't work, and in my world, you always have backup for backup. We arranged to have the state come in and train Barb, Jen, and myself, so all 3 of us are now certified to do fingerprinting according to the state of Maryland. So we won't run into a snag where we did earlier in my employment here, where we actually had to ask the sheriff's office to help us out and do some fingerprinting so we could continue with the recruiting process. Also learned that we had no backup as coordinators with the Maryland State Retirement Pension and Retirement System. Again, there was one individual in the department who was so certified. We've now, Barb, Jen, and myself have all gone through the training and the test to be certified so that we can be coordinators for the system to ensure that if any of the retirees or soon-to-be retirees have questions about the system, we can actually access and help them with, and get information for them. Learned after I got here, we have an employee assistance program through Cigna, through our health insurance carrier. And there was a second program that was free for us through another vendor. But we were also paying a third vendor about $6,000 a year to provide EAP services for us. Good vendor, good program, but I couldn't really justify spending $6,000 when I had two other programs that were free. So we discontinued that particular vendor for FY24. And there wasn't a ton of activity anyway, but justifying spending the additional money when we had two other services. Also learned that we were paying an outside firm to represent us in Maryland State unemployment hearings. Wasn't a lot of money, $2,200 a year, $550 a quarter. But what we learned in FY23 was they had only handled 4 claims for us throughout the entire year. I've been involved in unemployment claims forever and ever, and Jen's been involved with them in her past. So we discontinued that contract for FY24 until we could see whether or not it was manageable or not internally. I believe it is. We established, I think I've mentioned this one previously, what is called a post-hire or a 45-day interview, so that about 6 or 7 weeks into a new employee's time with us, we reach out, talk to the person, and Barb actually is the one who is spearheading that. It's a touch point with a new employee. How's it going? You know, did we kind of tell you that did what we tell you about the job is what it's turning out to be? Is there any resources you need? How's the communication going in the department? That kind of thing. And that's been useful. We've talked to probably, I think Barb has now done 19 of them in the past several months. And it gives us a sense and a flavor of what's going on with the new hires, how the process, the onboarding as well as the initial process and work in their departments going. So we find that to be useful data for us going forward, and we'll have a lot more of that. We talked about this one at one point too, where after Jen came on board, we dramatically modified the recruitment process to make use of the social media platforms that are out there that we had not been using here in the county. We're finding that we're getting more responses, more timely responses, better candidate pool to draw from than we had in prior years. So we're seeing the benefit of that, and I think the last 2 weeks, particularly the last 8 or so applications, we've been able to bring forward to you are indications of that. Shortly after I got here, I learned that the HR department had kind of abdicated their responsibility for advertising and recruiting for Parks and Recreation. I don't know where or how that happened, but in talking to Jill and her team, we found out that they were doing their own advertising, they were doing their own interviewing, they were doing the whole soup to nuts, and then they would tell HR, here's what we want, and HR would do the onboarding, and Park and Rec was also doing some of the training. We met with Jill and her team, and I explained that it didn't make sense to me that HR wasn't doing HR work. So we took back the responsibility for advertising, recruiting, pre-screening, interviewing with the departments, and then, of course, the background checks and the rest of that. And the onboarding included going out to Park and Rec and doing that out there rather than having a whole bunch of people trying to run into here. We basically made that part of the onboarding a road show. And I think ultimately for the past seasonal group, it enabled us in collaboration with Park and Rec to hire 41 people and took a lot of the burden that should have been HR's responsibility off of Parks and Rec. So that was actually I'm very proud of that one because it just made so much sense. And Barb and Jen particularly on the recruiting and the onboarding, going out to Park and Rec and handling the rest of the onboarding and also going out and doing some of the training that's required for the new hires. We took all that in internally. The next couple have to do with policies, but they came before you all with your approval for the legal and illegal drug use and then the lactation or pump policy. We realized that the policy manuals was out of date for those. there will be a number of other additional policy items coming forth in the coming months. As we go through the current policy manual, we believe there's a number of other territories that we should be addressing in policy. A couple of ones that are really kind of pleasing. You all approved us to do some renovations in HR earlier in my time here, and those renovations are now complete. So I would certainly encourage and invite you all to come upstairs and see what you all approved. I think what we are hearing uniformly from other employees and visitors and applicants, that it's a very professional atmosphere up in Human Resources now, and I'm just delighted at how it turned out.
Were you under budget on that?
I'm sorry?
Were you under budget on that?
Actually, I was.
Good.
Yeah. We were able to, and we found the money in the '23 budget, but we actually did really well on that item, and it turned out great. The other item that the commissioners approved early in my time was to source out a human resources information system. We're in the process of uploading data for that, and we expect that system to be fully operational in another 30 to probably 45 days. That'll give us the ability to generate more data for you all, better reports, better tracking on applicants, and I think ultimately one of the things we're going to be able to do is digitize the personnel files so that they're accessible to everybody in the department, and not worry about necessarily lost pieces of paper. We're heading down that path. Finally, retiree health insurance. We're still working on that one. A couple of things that we've learned, particularly over the past month or so, is that we really have to distinguish how we handle retiree health for the individuals who are 65 and over and eligible for Social Security versus our retirees who are under the age of 65 and not eligible for Social Security as yet. The 65 and plus group, the Social Security crowd, there was some regulatory changes earlier in this year, which we now understand gives us the ability to do what had previously been done with providing reimbursements for the Medicare premiums and the deductibles. We still have to work our way through the process of filing the paperwork to be granted approval to do that. But we are absolutely heading down that path. The under 65 group is still more challenging for us. We've sought out opinions from a couple of different consultants at this point, and there's sort of a mixed bag of response on quite how we can do that and how we can do it and follow regulations, but we're still working our way through that, and we're providing more information to the consultants to get the final answer on what we can do and exactly how we can do it correctly going forward. I don't have a timeline on that one because it was a huge data compilation that we had to put together. Jen and Barb, primarily Jen, worked on the data compilation for the benefits programs and what was needed to do the rest of the research, and that's taken her the better part of the last
2 weeks.
2 weeks. But that's now done, and we're actually submitting that data to one of the consultants this week. And I was promised a fairly quick turnaround, so we should be able to have more information for all of you shortly on how we're going to make these things happen.
So regarding the 65 and older,
Yes, sir.
what vendor or consultant are we using?
We're still working with Chesapeake, who's been the vendor with the retirees for a number of years. What we're trying to nail down now is the documentation submission so that we have approval to do that. There was a regulatory change earlier in this year, I don't have the date, which kind of threw this thing in. Yeah, we kind of threw this whole thing into a tizzy, and now we're circling back to make sure that we're going to do it correctly going forward.
Well, this is unfortunate that it even got this far. And I realize that you were acting on information that you were provided. outside source, I'm assuming.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know why we're still using that same outside source, when we've already gotten information that that source should have been well aware of, because that's what they do. I actually provided the county administrator with another provider or consultant firm, which clearly, after looking at it on the internet, there was nothing inappropriate about what we were doing in the first place, other than maybe instead of an HRA, it should have been an ICHRA.
Right.
Well, we didn't have either one.
No.
Yeah.
I think we had an HRA according to our former
retirees, it was
HR.
just for the
Only
employees.
for current employees.
It wasn't for the retirees.
Well, I think this has gone way beyond my expectations. And I understand, we got two issues here. We got the 65 and older, and we got the 65 and under. It's pretty clear that the 65 and older, that has been resolved. Would you agree?
Yes, we could fix that.
We're still working
We
on
need to
it.
do the submissions, but
We're
we can
still
fix
working
that.
on the 65 and under.
Yeah.
And if I understand the issue correctly, it has to do with, there might be a higher premium.
And a different
Yes.
provider, and so we're working through, we're trying to find very clear answers before we present that, so that there's no
For
confusion.
the 65 and under.
Correct.
So I had also asked for an idea of how many people that are in the 65 and under, how many of them are close to being 65, if we know it, you know. But I mean, I think that's information that we should know.
And
We
I
know
would
it.
say, I can provide you with the data that took me 2 weeks to compile, because I mean, it asks for everything. I mean, I even had to provide date of births for the spouses to determine their premium coverages and what it would cost and things like that. If you would like that data, I don't see any reason as to why we couldn't provide you with that. But I mean,
I'd like to see it.
it's a very extensive file that required a lot of information. I think part of it that is hard for people to understand is not, all of our retirees don't pay the same premium. Every single one of them is different, because each of them have different types of coverages. So that's a big piece of it, because they're all not on the same plan and having the same piece, or pieces to the puzzle.
But we're talking about what, under 65, like maybe
Both
14,
of them,
14 people.
with the under 65, yes, they are all the same, but the over 65 is different, which, well, yes and no, because you have some retirees that are Medicare eligible, but their spouses are not. So there's kind of a disconnect as to how we handle those types of retirees. Do we keep them on our current plan, or do we move them to Medicare and then keep their spouses on there? So there's, those ones are special cases ones, and we do have a couple of those as well.
And to your point, as Jen said, it is a mixed bag. Part of the concern, it is a very small group, 10, 12 folks that are the under 65 crowd. But one of the challenges that we're faced with at the moment, and trying to make sure we're doing it correctly, is what do you do with a small group like that? Do you keep them incorporated into the employee program? Do you try to create a separate program that's only for a county retiree under the age of 65? And the challenge there is what the cost will be, if it's even insurable that way. We're trying to make sure that we don't try to create something that's going to blow up. We've already been down that path of something that, has blown up in the past several months that we need to fix. So we don't want to do that a second time. We want to make sure that whatever we land on is the best thing we can do for the retirees, because, obviously that's what you all intended, was to make sure the retirees, we're well taken care of in the county. That's what we're trying to get to.
And I would say that there's maybe, it would be less than half that are eligible, or that will be I would say within 3 to 5 years of Medicare eligibility age, roughly. That's a really rough estimate, but.
So we
If I'm
have a-
not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the retirees have not lost anything in dollars as of yet, is that true or false?
Well, we gave them funding. There was, obviously when we discontinued the payments for the premiums, that would have been a loss over the past month, I guess. But we also, instead of having them wait for monies to be reimbursed for other parts of the coverage, we fronted that money and gave them that money 6 months in advance so that they could use it, which, it's a kind of a soft dollar savings. They didn't have to put any of that money out. They already had it from us to use as they were making their monthly payments. But yeah, there's still a bit of an impact, but fortunately that impact has been for a very short period of time at this point, and we now believe we can at least fix the 65 and over crowd correctly.
Well, any other questions?
No, this next payment is September the 30th, right? Is that?
That'd be the quarter ends then.
Well, you mean for the money that we fronted them 6 months, so actually the next payment's January 1st. We gave them the whole rest of this calendar year.
No changes have been made in this calendar year?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
No. Changes have been made this
Changes,
calendar year.
changes were made,
Have
yes.
have the retirees lost any dollars as
There
of
should
yet?
still be, at this point, no dollars out of pocket for
Right.
any retiree because they were fronted the Medigap coverage for 6 months. So assuming we can go back and pick up their payments, it hasn't caught up with it yet. They've been fronted so much money that there should be no out-of-pocket dollars at this point.
As of now, it's no out-of-pocket dollars.
Yeah, that's how I'm understanding. Now, Jen points out to me that there were a few people their types of coverage or their levels of coverage changed, and what they received in the upfront money may not have covered those changes in coverage, and we have to circle back on that and see what the impact with that would have been. But since it's been a month, that should be a negligible amount of money, at least for the first month.
All right, I'd like to make a motion. If there's no other questions at this point.
No, not right now, but
I'd like to make a motion to move immediately forward with implementing the Medicare B benefits promised to all county employees over the age of 65 that were unfortunately taken away from the retirees on June 30th. This motion is also a directive to county staff that the commissioners wish to schedule a meeting with our retirees over the age of 65 within the next 2 weeks. And county staff should have the necessary procedures in place to fulfill our commitment to our retirees by September 30th. Basically, we need to put exactly what was in place prior to June 30th to include responsive customer service, where our county HR department handles the needs of our retirees and employees. And I say that last part because I'm not satisfied with the services of the vendor that you got your bad information from. And I feel that there's kind of a vote of no confidence from our retirees. It's not their fault that this particular person or vendor didn't stay up on the law changes. And it's not your fault because you didn't know it either. But you were misled, we were misled, not on purpose.
No.
But it's time to fix it. It's been going on way too long. That's my motion.
do I have a second?
I'll second it, but I mean, is that doable for you guys? I guess that might be my
I'm
only
kind of worried
question.
about the 2-week time frame
Yeah.
because of whatever documentation has to be filed with the government to give us permission to do what we know we want to do. I just don't know what that timeline is. And even if we get the paperwork submitted next week. I can't guarantee that the government's going to be responsive and give us an answer a week after that. I haven't seen the federal government operate quite that quickly.
I understand that, and that's what's so frustrating about government for us.
The one thing I want to see is that that the people get what was promised to them, and we go back to where they're supposed to be. And I agree with John, I like dealing with county employees, and we'll do our own research, and we'll find out what we got to do and what we can't do. I don't like relying on some outside person, and I want it done in-house. So I just want the employees or the retirees to understand that they're going to be held harmless. Those over 65 anyhow are going to be held harmless, and that's why I asked if they were out of pocket, had lost any money as of now, and whatever they need, whatever we want them made whole.
Okay.
One of my biggest concerns in it is what is going to be the impact to the under 65. So if we implement this, I think we need to fully understand what the impact is to the under 65s, because we don't want to so adversely affect them that we're solving one problem to create another. And that's part of what our exercise is in talking to vendors, is to find out exactly what that impact is.
Well, we're taking it a piece at a time, and we're taking care of the people over 65 now, and we'll have to deal with those under 65.
But I will say that it's bundled together.
Yes.
So there is, if you make one change, it may, from what we understand, very seriously affect the other. You can't deal with them separately. And that's the concern that.
I understand your concern. I feel that it's important to go ahead and do what I said in my motion, and we'll consider the under 65, even though they may be bundled together. To me, that's a separate issue. And I know that it may not be in your world,
Well,
but it is in mine.
okay, so maybe I'm not exactly making myself clear, but
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
if the under 65's insurance doubles in premium cost
Which is what
To the
will
county.
happen.
to the county and to them?
Because
More specifically to them.
It's
It will go
potentially,
up immensely.
it's potentially
Now,
what
does it-
can happen here.
Okay, so the under 65, they were promised health care. As long as they had their 30 years.
And if I remember correctly, it was the promise, the same health care they were carrying prior to retirement.
Yes.
We didn't promise their spouses health care, but their spouses
No.
are allowed to sign up on it.
We did. We promised their spouse, as long as they were employed and their spouse and/or any other
Whatever they were
dependents were
carrying
covered
before they
for up to
retired.
7 years prior to retirement.
Yeah, if they were carrying family coverage, then that's what carried forward. They couldn't
But
switch
they
from
pay for
individual
that.
and then do
But
the
they
other
pay for
part.
that, right?
Right.
In the same
They pay-
percentages
In the same
that
percentages.
employees.
The only
they're
thing
doing
the
now.
county's on the hook for, and that's a poor term probably, but on the hook for,
Yeah.
is the employee that actually served the county for 30 years. And the county takes care of that for them.
No.
No.
We are also on the hook for the spouse.
It's still, we're still on the hook for the spouses, and
But
it
you're
would
on the
still
hook
be at the
to allow the
percentages
spouse
that
to
we,
participate, but
yeah.
No, and pay. We
And pay.
pay.
we pay for the spouse.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a different cost percentage as the employee, but
We
yes,
don't pay
we pay.
100%.
Right.
It's like
They-
But what
40.
happens is, if I'm hearing this
40,
correctly, because these
60.
two things are
Yeah.
bundled together, if the cost goes up significantly for the under 65s, we're covering families, or let's say the spouses, but we're not covering the spouses at 100%. That means that if the cost goes significantly up, there is going to be a significant out-of-pocket expense with respect to the spouse of the retiree.
And to
And,
the county. And to the
yes.
county.
and to the county, but it is also true for somebody who just has single coverage, just employee coverage. It won't be as impactful, but it will impact them.
So
If
we
it
don't,
were to double, their premium, their percentage of the premium would double.
so
as well.
for the under 65s, we weren't paying 100%, it was a percentage of it. So there was Essentially, we paid a portion,
cost
the
share.
Yeah, I think the
Cost
original
share.
split was 60/40, I believe.
Similar to what
Original split.
employee-
Now,
Okay.
now we're 90-10.
Now we're 90/10 individual, and we're 80/20 on family,
Right.
which is what it would be.
but that
that's
ten
where it
percent's
gets,
gonna be higher for the
Yes.
employee.
yeah, which means it's going to impact the county's price tag as well. That's why I mentioned that why it's challenging is because we need to know for sure whether or not leaving them on the county plan that we have right now, whether or not we can even do that under our summary plan description, or since they're no longer active employees, because our current summary plan description only references active employees.
Right. And-
Whether or not we can do that, or we would have to move them to a whole separate plan of their own. And I can tell you from past experience, if we tried to do that, the price tag would be astronomical, if we could be insured at all.
And/or if they're moved to the individual health exchange. So
Right, if
each
they go
one
to
is
the
its
individual
separate plan.
exchange, and then we don't know what the
That
price
will be
tag's gonna
significantly
be.
more expensive.
Right,
It's
because what I've seen is there's a difference, these plans define employees different than retirees. And retirees do not fall within the
18-month.
description of employee. So there's a lot to navigate.
There is,
Which
and
is
then
why-
as Jen was just mentioning to me, there's also built into our current summary plan description, the contract with the insurance carrier, is that they have to roll off of a plan like that after 18 months. Now, for the number of people that aren't going to reach 65 in 18 months, then what do you do with that crowd? So then we potentially have a third group to worry about. I swear, I wish this was simple, because I'd like it to be simple, but we haven't found simple yet. We have found a couple of vendors.
Simple was probably what was being done in the beginning.
Right, but it wasn't legal.
Yeah, well, except it wasn't, yeah,
Well,
at the
it was-
time,
It was
anyway.
legal, we just didn't have the procedures.
Well, not
We were
not when we
doing it.
started.
No, for a while, when we started, it wasn't even
It
legal to
wasn't
be doing
legal.
it that way, much less that. The other part of it is the,
The research that's
commitment,
being
the
done
amount of-
now should have been done way back then, in a perfect world.
yeah, the amount of time and effort that it takes to manage these 29 folks versus the time it takes to manage the 200-plus other active employees that are on coverage. We have found a couple of vendors that their sole purpose is to manage retiree health insurance. I've talked to one directly, and we're providing information, and I've talked to the client of another one to understand how they're operating. And frankly, I do think that there are opportunities for us. We don't have the dollars and cents attached yet, but I think there may be opportunities where we can do this better, cleaner, more efficiently, and get the retirees what the commissioners committed to them to have all those years ago.
Well,
We
you
just
know-
need the time to get
You
there.
know what our intent is.
Absolutely.
Our intent is to put everything back in place where it was on June 30th.
Yes.
And, okay, so maybe I was a little hopeful that you could accomplish this by September 30th, which
Yeah.
is a good 2 weeks away, I guess, almost.
Yeah.
But if it takes a little longer, then that's fine.
Okay.
But my motion still stands.
And we'll certainly continue to work on it. We will
And
certainly
the other
make sure
issue-
that you know where we stand.
The other issue, our intent is to make these retirees whole again. And if it ends up costing us more for the under 65, we'll make a way for that to work.
Then we will certainly, as we report back out on this, we'll let you know the dollars and cents of it. For a piece of clarification for me, if any of the retirees have suffered any loss, out-of-pocket loss, since June 30th, month of July, month of August, is it the commissioner's intent to reimburse them for that, so they're whole as of the beginning of FY '24? Is that what I'm understanding?
That would be my
Okay.
opinion.
Just want to make sure I knew what dollars we were talking about as I talked to my boss and our CFO about the dollars and cents piece of this. Just want to make sure I know what I was dealing with. I understand, I get it, and I get what you're saying, Commissioner. This has taken longer than any of us wanted it to take, and I was the one that stood in this room in front of the retirees and told them why we were stopping it, and I'm the one that will stand in front of the retirees and tell them we were wrong and we're going to fix it. I've got no problem doing that.
Listen,
And I hope we can do that within the next 2 weeks, even though you may not have it all ironed out. And
Telling them where we're heading.
as a commissioner, I would
Absolutely.
like to be here for that meeting.
Absolutely, I'm happy to do that, and at least let them know that there was a mistake. We messed up, me, messed up, and we're gonna fix it. And I may not know the date when we meet with the retirees to tell them what date it's gonna get fixed, but I'm happy to stand in front of all of them and say, we messed up and we're gonna fix it. And you all are gonna be whole at the end. I'm happy to do that. It's my responsibility.
You let me know when I need to be at the meeting. Now, I'm assuming we'll try to do it on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Well, last time we scheduled the meetings, we scheduled 2 meetings to try to accommodate the retirees' schedules. And so it was a morning and an afternoon, I think, on the same day that we did it. Don't remember what day of the week that was.
Friday.
We need to
It was a
publicize
Friday.
this meeting.
Oh, Friday.
Yes, if there's more than one commissioner, we need to.
Well, I
No,
know.
we're gonna do it,
But-
we're gonna do it at a meeting. I mean, I think that's where it should be done. It's been a big discussion, it's been a big decision.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of talk about this issue. It's been a major issue, and we need to get it cleared up. And if it takes a little longer, I don't care about that, but what I do care about is that I want every retiree to get what was supposed to be, what was promised to them and what they got coming to them.
Understood.
And if we have to pay that
We'll work on it.
extra, however it takes to make that work is what needs to be done.
Okay. Understood.
We made them a
We'll work on
promise
that,
when
and
they
we'll
left
let you know
here,
when
and
we're
we're gonna
ready.
keep that promise.
Understood.
And it is understood that personally, I would like to see you guys dealing with our retirees.
I think if we can clean up the processes, and find some ways to make it cleaner, make it streamlined, I would agree. But I don't know that yet. What I've seen in my first 6 months is that it's laborious, it's time-consuming, it's fraught with the potential for error. None of those 3 things are things that I like in my operation. If it needed to be outsourced to make sure that it was done best and cleanest and in the best intent for the retirees, that's what I would suggest to you. I'm not there for that suggestion yet, but I want it to be the best for the retirees, whichever way that comes.
Just sitting here looking in, to me, in-house is best. And I realize it's more work, but that's what your job is.
Right.
Yes, sir. It is.
Having an outside, firm or whatever handle it doesn't have that personal touch that these employees deserve.
The one drawback to not using outside resources on something like this is that none of us in the department are licensed brokers. And there's things we cannot talk about with the retirees. We're not allowed to legally, and we can't give them certain advice that if you use a broker, a licensed broker, they can have a different level of conversation with the retirees. So I would be concerned and remiss if I didn't tell you that there's times when you have to have somebody that has that credential, those credentials.
And I would just like to add that we're exploring it because there are literally companies that just handle retiree health care. That is their business model, and they can do it better and more effectively. They are subject matter experts, and we don't know what the recommendation will be from staff at this point, but we would like to explore talking to a couple of those companies because they may be able to serve our retirees better for the same cost.
We're always here for the retirees. They come in, they call, which is perfectly fine. That's what we are here for. But there are instances that they do ask things that, to be quite honest, I have no idea how to help them besides telling them to come back, or I'll call them to Google it because I have no idea. I'm nowhere near Medicare age, so that's like in a completely different world my mind. I know it's coming, but I'm not there yet.
It's very confusing.
It is, and I've learned that from dealing with this. There's many different plans and things like that, and that would be my only concern as to you wanting it to come back in-house. I speak for Jim and the rest of our department. We have no issues with the.
Maybe we could consider something like this. Okay, I understand you're not the experts in those fields, although Jim is well over 65, so he should be. But
Thank you.
what's wrong with having a go-to person for our retirees in the HR office, which maybe you already have, a go-to person that can kind of mediate or.
Sure.
But there would have to be.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean, if-
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
that would.
Which might be a good way for them to have the local contact where they feel like, I can trust Jen or Jim or Barbara or whoever to help me through this and understand it by engaging for them within, I realize the confidentiality, but at least grease the path for them.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Any way
Oh, we
you
can
cut
absolutely-
it,
and that's
that's a
out-
given.
We're not
can
kicking
absolutely
them
do
out
that.
and like
Yeah,
saying, hey,
absolutely.
we're
Yeah,
done.
absolutely.
No, not at all. But there's, like I said, things they ask that I have no idea how to help them.
Well, I'm glad you brought up what you just brought up, because I've got another question from a retiree who I'm sure is listening that I want to ask you to all try to find out the answer to. But before I do that, I think we need to clean up my motion, whether we're going to pass it or we're not.
So
You
what
can
I would
amend the
do,
motion.
you could amend the motion, or you could withdraw the motion altogether, as long as it's okay with whoever seconded it, Commissioner
Nobody
Nickerson,
seconded
and then
it
make
yet.
a new motion.
Did they?
Yeah, I think Commissioner Nickerson seconded the
Okay.
motion.
I'm certainly
for
not going to
discussion
withdraw the
purposes.
motion, but the only thing that I would consider amending is the September 30th date, extending that with the assurance that you're going to be on top of it and get it moving forward as quickly as possible.
And then the seconder would need to second the amendment.
Well, I will do
Okay.
that, but I just want to, I guess first and foremost, and I don't think for one second that you got, and nobody in this room wanted to have happen what happened to our retirees. I don't, and I think, personally, I think that we were given that bad information, and I don't have a whole lot of confidence in that firm anymore, because that's kind of what led us to where we are today. I do think that you guys, unfortunately, the wheels of this stuff turn slower than what we would like to see them turn at a lot of times. But we appreciate what you're doing. Just, I guess the biggest thing is to know that the three of us are certainly want to make sure that these retirees are made whole and given what they were promised. I mean, that was the deal, and I think it's important for us to follow through with that. So having said all of that, I second the motion.
Well, and I agree, but not only, when you talk about the bad information, then it was followed up with, and if you don't do this,
Right.
we could be faced with an $11 million fine.
And that's still true.
I mean,
Yeah.
listen, I hear this is an argument we hear in here all the time. You guys better do this, or this is gonna happen. MDE is gonna come down on you. Critical areas is gonna come down on you. All these people are gonna come down on you. Look, these people are supposed to be our partners, not our adversaries. And I get tired of hearing, we had an issue about the critical areas a while back. Worked out fine. Nobody was upset with what we did. As long as we're doing the right thing and we think it's the right thing, these people are going to work with us. I'm convinced that. I challenge somebody to show me in the history of Kent County when one of these agencies come down on Kent County and really caused us a lot of problems. These other governmental agencies are not out looking to clobber Kent County or the decisions we make, as long as it's done with the right reason in mind and we're working to make the right decisions. I don't see any of that taking place. And I kind of resent it when people say, well, you better do it this way, or this agency is going to fine you, or what. I don't even want to hear that because I don't believe it to start with. That's enough for me. Nobody going to come here and fine Kent County $11 million for trying to do something right for our retirees. I don't believe that for a minute.
Got a motion in a second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Will somebody give me a copy of the final motion to make, you all let me know what the final language turned out to be here.
My motion that I read is in my notes, if you need to print it off for Jim. And, don't pay attention to the September 30th date, but the rest of it's pretty much still intact. Jen, you brought up a good point where you sometimes get questions that you can't answer because for one reason or another. And the same thing happened to me when I was meeting with a retiree this past week, or last week. And here's the question for you and Jim. So we have a retired Kent County employee who has a spouse. They're both on the current plan with the county. And the retired employee, suppose they die. Is the spouse still entitled to health care coverage from the county?
My understanding is no.
I don't think so either.
Well, I can tell you where the state of Maryland
spouse's
works.
coverage is predicated on the former employee, now retiree.
I would think from.
I don't think they would be able to argue a continuation or a qualifying event to allow them to continue with us. I don't think so.
They may be able to, through Cobra, maybe.
Yeah, but that's
It
just-
would have to be
that's just
something we'd have,
temporary.
that's a
think so.
slippery slope, not a
Yeah.
slippery,
Well,
it's, that'd
yeah, it
be,
is.
Is that
we'd have
something-
to
And even
reach
the
out to our
Cobra
Look, I
carrier.
don't expect you all to have the answer. I know your gut feeling is probably no, but could you look into that
Sure.
and maybe report back?
Sure.
Yeah.
Because.
If you wouldn't
there-
mind offline, let us know who the individual is so that we can research
well,
specifics.
I think they've asked a question and they never got a response, which I
Don't know.
felt
Not
was
of-
inappropriate.
Not of me or,
Not that I can
I haven't heard that
recall.
scenario. I
apologize
apologize.
if
How
it
about if
wasn't
John
me.
gives you that name after the meeting?
Please.
or
Yeah,
something?
I can do that,
Yeah.
but yeah, they do need to hear some follow-up. And
We'll
I'd
make
like to
sure.
know myself because
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Tricky question.
I'm familiar with how the state of Maryland does it because I'm in that predicament. So when my wife retired from the state of Maryland, she had a choice to choose Plan A or Plan B, which allowed me to basically have health care
Right.
for the rest of my life, even if she were to die first. So,
Okay, so that was one of the options that was built into that plan
Yeah, we'll have
design.
to reach out to
Yeah.
our insurance rep.
Yeah, I'm not sure that would
to
have been
find out
built
about
into
our
our
plan.
plan design.
I
but
don't think
that's
it
the
is built
question.
in, but I think we need to talk about it and see if there is, I mean, think about it. This particular person I'm talking about, if the retiree passes away, this other person's almost 80 years old. Where's this person gonna get health care? They're not.
They would already be on Medicaid.
Yeah, but that's not what you think it is.
Well, our current retirees over 65 aren't on anything but Medicaid and Medigap.
Unless they are currently
Medicare.
employed by
Medicare.
the county.
Sorry,
Medicare.
Medicare
Medicaid is
and
different.
Yeah,
Medigap.
that's
yes.
what,
Medicaid.
that,
Medicare is not what-
they're
no.
doing that plus
Right, they
have
buying
the-
The
supplemental
government
Yeah.
makes you sign up for it.
But the question would be, would we reimburse them? Or
Yeah, well,
would
could we
pay?
even, could
I
we
think-
even keep them on the plan?
Keep them,
Right.
give them an opportunity
Yeah.
to,
That's
give them a waiver to stay, or I don't know, waiver's the
It would,
right word,
I
but
think
we'd
it
have to-
kind of boils down to a qualifying event to stay
Yeah,
on.
but the qualifying event refers to
Be
the
the death of
employee
the-
or the retiree.
Right.
The spouse was never an employee of ours. It gets tremendously tricky. I mean, we're certainly happy to look into it.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
he's 80 years old.
Wow.
Something happens.
Yeah, because, I mean, Yeah, even if the person was on Medicare,
Oh, I have not heard, if that's who you're speaking of, I have not heard from them. I have not received that question. I wondered if that question went to our vendor.
yeah, I'm wondering the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that question was presented upstairs. That may have been a question that was raised directly with our vendor, because our vendor was meeting
That
with
could
all the
be.
retirees.
Yeah.
Could be. The vendor that told us the wrong information.
Yeah, I kind of wasn't going down there, but okay.
Well, I don't mind going down there.
Yeah.
But anyhow, look,
We'll look into that.
know where we're at.
And we will
if
figure
you
it
can-
out.
And I'll give you the name after the meeting, and
Yeah, and we'll circle around
They
and
would- they
we'll
would
find out the
appreciate-
answer and get back. Yeah, absolutely.
and if there's something that we need to do as a board to allow that to happen,
It could be that we have to change our plan.
We may have to
documents.
amend the plan description, the plan document,
Then I think we should
assuming
try
the
to do
contract
that.
can be amended to do that.
because I don't think it's fair.
Sure, we'll
Well,
look into it to
And I
see
guess
if
when you,
it's a
when you really
possibility.
think, when I think about it in kind of a global sense,
How has this never happened before?
how has this never happened? And are the majority of our retirees males who have spouses who are carried along, or is it the other way around?
No, not really,
No?
no.
So it's interesting. It's,
So you'll look into it for
Do
me.
you think the
Absolutely.
males are going to die before the females?
Well,
Statistically
Always.
speaking, the answer to that question is yes.
Women have
There's-
longer life
I sure hope
expectancy.
so.
there's a funny answer to that
Table,
question
at
as
least.
well, but we can't be on recording when I give you that answer.
Well, I would be interested to know that, what you find out.
Okay, that's what I had as our overall report for the day, plus a couple of things. Is there anything else that you needed from us or me
I
at
think
this stage?
I think we all understand what we want now.
Okay,
Thank you.
And
Thank
Chandra,
you.
will you make sure Jim gets a copy of my notes for you, Shelley?
yes.
You all have done this before.
Herb, do you have something you want to say, Mr. Kirby?
Actually, I came down to talk to Jen.
Okay.
thank you, gentlemen.
You got a retiree issue? Nice seeing you, Brian.
Okay, wow.
Welcome back.
Yes. All right, these should be pretty easy here. So the first item on the agenda is requesting approval of contract with David Bramble for blacktop paving. And they'd be piggybacking under an existing Maryland Department of Transportation State Highway contract, which is typical what we have with these projects that we've done in the past. So we had $168,600 in the budget. This is for paving Tolchester Beach Road, and that's basically from Bay Shore 445 down past the entrance to the marina. The proposal amount for the contract's $165,500, so we're under budget. So we're looking for a motion for approval in the amount of $165,500 for paving Tolchester Beach Road to David E. Bramble,
And you're saying that that's the section from 445 down to the water?
basically down to the water, yeah.
I didn't realize that much of that was a county road.
We're going down basic, we want to try to get to the water just because it's accessible. There's some question whether from the entrance there, that little section of it may not be, but I think it is, so I think we're going to try to get it
Well,
down.
that was a state highway for a long time, wasn't it? Did the state turn it over to the county at some point?
That I don't know. I mean, you got obviously Bay Shore 445, but I don't know that the state would have had it because it's such a dead end.
But the state's saying that that's not their road?
No, it's our road.
It's their road?
Yeah.
From the intersection all the way down
To the
past the
water.
Nike Basin or the Ag Center and
I thought I remember hearing that the county's maintenance area stopped just past Elm Street.
That I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure we're paving.
I mean, I'm not
taking
doubting
care of
what
that.
you're saying, but.
Yeah.
No, I'm not either. I just didn't realize that the county owned that piece of,
Been up to the-
I thought I didn't, be perfectly honest with you, I thought we only had that little stretch, like maybe from the entrance to Tolchester Marina down to where the riprap is.
No, but, no. Yeah.
Did the state, because for a while, I think the state had that, a good portion of that. in their inventory.
That's before my time, so I don't, I mean, we're definitely not going to pave stick
This
on
man
it.
looks like has some institutional knowledge here.
I think what Cherry Lane off of 291, the state took that, so they gave Telchester Road to swap it out, something
There you go.
like that.
Jerry Lane's blacktop.
Cherry, because the state took Cherry Lane over.
Okay.
Where's Cherry Lane?
Well, you know, above the Owens property.
Where?
Where's the Owens?
Oh, okay, okay.
Takes it back to 10.
I think there was a Bateman swap there.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I'm sure you're right, John, no doubt.
I lived here 66.
I'll make a motion to approve a contract with David A. Bramble Incorporated for blacktop paving Chichester Beach Road in the amount of $165,500 under the conditions of a competitively bid existing Maryland Department of Transportation State Highway Administration contract number XY 9145177. And the public should also understand that this is currently $3,000 under budget.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion, a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, the ayes have it.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is requesting approval of budget adjustment from FY23 to FY24 in the amount of $311,787 for vehicle lease expenses due to delays in delivery in FY23. We had 6 enterprise lease vehicles that were budgeted in FY23 that weren't received before the end of the year. 2 EMS support vehicles were delivered the first week of August. We're waiting for 2 Tahoes for the sheriff's office vehicle, each in building maintenance and water wastewater. All 6 vehicles required additional outfitting and a secondary supplier that contributed to the delay. Because the lease expense is over $300,000, Finance Department is requiring that the budget adjustment must be approved by the commissioners.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget adjustment request allowing funds to be moved from the FY23 to FY24 in the amount of $311,787 for leased vehicles expenses due to delayed deliveries.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye, all opposed, the ayes have it.
And Mike, we're still having trouble getting vehicles. I mean, they're,
I know. It's
we're
still
gonna
an
see more
issue,
of
and
those
if we
coming.
have the strike coming up, that could be, still make it worse. From what I understand, there's one vehicle for the maintenance vehicle that is in production now, and the other ones are at outfitters, so secondary outfitters, like, especially with the police, sheriff's vehicles, you've got all the stuff that's got to get put on them. But it's definitely been a struggle. All right, the next item on the agenda is, again, following orders from the Finance Department, requesting a budget adjustment approval transfer $129,752 in unspent salary and benefits in the FY23 budget to cover operating cost overages in the Public Works Water and Wastewater Division budget. This is part of the audit that the Finance Department is doing. Notes the overall budget's favorable for water wastewater and will be under the budget as far as the general fund support by approximately $120,000. But we've had some expenses in terms of broken down machinery, additional grinder pumps that we have to keep replacing, depletion of inventory, and septic electric usage that was associated with the lagoon sludge removal project. So these lines total $125,024 with the operating budget overspent by $129,752. We have salary and budget. The salary and benefit budget is underspent by $131,673 due to staffing vacancies and can cover the operating overages. So basically what we need for approval from the commissioners is to move that money from salaries and benefits into the operating expenses.
I'll make a
entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget adjustment request, allowing funds to be moved from the salary and benefit funds to the operating expense funds in the amount of $129,752 as requested.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, the ayes have it.
Thank you. Last item I have is a request to sign a letter of intent for funding assistance from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for the construction of the Millington Wastewater Treatment Plant project. Through discussions with the Corps of Engineers, there's possible opportunity to two different programs that they have to obtain funding. It's a 75-25% share match. So the county, if we would be able to obtain this kind of funding, would have a 25% match required. The project they look at is project-related, so it includes planning, design, construction, the overall project. So with the work that we are doing now between the feasibility study, the design, all that money can be applied towards that match if we're fortunate to be able to get that money. There's a funding program had about $100 million in for Maryland through this Water Resource Development Act, and none of that's been allocated yet. So I think the Army Corps of Engineers kind of reached out looking for interest. It does require a congressional earmark, but we can follow up with this intent letter if you choose to send that in and contact our representatives to let them know that this project's out there. It's a valuable project because of the improvements to the bay with going to ENR, the economic development options, and removing a facility that's susceptible to flooding. So it'd be a really attractive project. I usually get concerned with Army Corps of Engineer projects because they have a reputation for being very long. But with us doing the design, we can help fast track this and get the money lined up for construction during the design. The Corps of Engineers will want to review the design because normally with these projects, they actually do the design for it. But we can, I believe we can fast track that, keep that going, and then parlay that grant program into the construction fees that we need. And as I've talked about before, there's a variety of different things that we're going to be pursuing in terms of grants for the construction of the project. Talked about the flood management, developer contributions, things like that. So looking for approval to sign that letter of intent.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the signing and submittal of a letter of intent to the United States Army Corps of Engineers requesting funding for the Millington Wastewater Treatment Facility project.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
All right, thank you. That's all I had. Late lunch.
I got a couple little things I ought to bring up, I guess, while you're still here. I got a complaint about up there, the Wharton Public Landing, the bulkhead where the boats tie alongside up there, Wharton Marina, Wharton Creek Marina. They've got some, the boats are, the people tying next to those pilings, those bolts sticking out, those pilings.
Oh, the bolts?
Are tearing
I've been against them.
And, I mean, an easy fix where that, just get it like 8-foot 2x4s and taper them on both ends and put them over top of, right on the pilings over top of the bolts so that the boat is actually rubbing against the 2x4 instead of that.
Yeah, I've done
Instead
it.
of those bolts, but I know there's been some mold and torn off of some boats because of those bolts sticking out too far.
Yeah, I've done it with an old fire hose. Nail that onto the side of it.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah, okay.
And we talked in the past about the granary up to Turner's Creek.
Yes.
We contacted the historical committee we have and asking for if they had any suggestions, and they were supposed to get back to us within a month or so, and that's been several months ago or more. That granary's not getting any better shape. It's still got pieces blowing off of it. The structures that have been put in place, we spend a lot of money putting those metal beam steel beams through there to keep it from falling down. Those have they're rotten and now, and they're falling apart. I mean, what do we do with that? Do we get rid of it? I mean, my suggestion was, I know it was a historical, of real piece of history for Kent County. But I was thinking maybe we would do some type of, what do you call it? A little monument or something there with pictures of what the place used to be and its importance to Kent County. But eventually, you can say what you want, but eventually that thing's gonna have to come down, or, metal flying off of it when the wind's blowing. It's just, they said it's the only one left in the state of Maryland, and there's a reason for that. Because they all got too bad to take care of, and I think this one is bordering on that. So I guess I'm talking to my commissioners more than I am you, Mike. Do we proceed with, what do we do to address it? Do we let it sit there and just continue to deteriorate? Do we try to do something better there?
I can give you an update. I've reached out to some firms that do reclaimed lumber, like tear down barns and things like that, because Mr. Mackey had suggested that was a way of trying to work that. Two of the firms have turned me down. I've got one other getting information, but I've gotten a proposal last week from a firm that does bring down the barns and then take the wood. The wood gets recycled and used and resold, which would be incorporated into their pricing. But I was going to hopefully get an answer from the second one and then come back to you either before the end of either the next two meetings in September with a proposal for removal of the granary. They would take, the theory would be they would take everything down, clean it all out. We would, including the beams, we would take the Jersey barriers back, put them down to Nike, and then our roads department would fill in the area, blacktop it. And I agree with you, those national park type signs, there's a couple of them there already. We could easily get one of those. I've done those before.
Kiosk was the word I was trying to think of, some type of a kiosk where it highlights what the importance of that was and where it stood, and something to, I mean, I don't take it lightly that it's a piece of history for Kent County, and it's something that should be recognized.
Yes.
But not to the point of letting it sit there and just become a real eyesore and probably a safety issue at some point.
It definitely is a safety issue. There are pieces coming off of it the way it is. If we get a big storm or something like that, especially that roof coming off. But that's my approach, is that looking at ways to take it down.
So you'll be coming in with some type of a recommendation, you think?
Well, my recommendation is removal of it, because I don't have any use for it in terms of, and we don't have the money to completely renovate it, because the renovation would be incredibly extensive.
And DNR has okayed the demolition, even if we haven't figured out exactly how we're going, because that means we basically have to use just almost $60,000 on that site for something. And we don't have a final recommendation for that yet, but DNR has okayed it in the meantime, the demo for safety concerns.
Right, and we can, next budget year, we can come up with a proposal for that, let them know what we do. A couple options would have a pavilion there, or which would tie in with the kiosk kind of thing. And also the bathrooms there on the left as you come down, possibly renovating those, are ideas that we had tossed around as far as reallocating that money that was originally spent to put in the I-beams and support it. That was an investment through the DNR. That's where I'm coming from. I just don't have any other use for the thing. I'm concerned with what's there. It's falling down.
So do you need something from us?
Nope. You brought up the thing, but I just want to let you know that I'm in the process of getting a proposal for removal of the granary.
Okay, and
We'll come back to you.
very good. One more thing before you leave, Mike, I would like for you to be here. The cell phone coverage in Colchester Estates. It's pretty much near, there's a zero coverage down there. If you get below, and I have friends down there that I visit a lot, you get below Eagle Hill Nursery, where that nursery used to be, a couple mile up the road, you have no cell phone coverage whatsoever in Colchester. I was contacted by a lady who her company builds these things, these cell phone towers. They, at no cost to the county, didn't cost us anything. As a matter of fact, they would pay us $1,000 a month as long as the tower's there. They build the tower. Verizon would be their very first customer. And then AT&T joins, probably would have a aerial there, and another provider that they.
T-Mobile.
I think so. What they would need in order to do that, and this is the question that we would have to consider, is they will build that tower. They just need a piece of property from the county, I assume, of 60 square feet is what they ask for. 60 by 60.
Well, typically what they'll do, if they'll come out, because I've dealt with cell towers before, they'll come out and check the strength in terms of the potential customers per se, and see where the optimum location of it is when they're trying to lease a piece of land. In your case, your example that you're talking about, the Nike base would be a potential location.
Well, that was obviously the first thing come to my mind. We could put it back in one of those two corners in the back there where it's sort of doesn't, I wouldn't think would bother anybody, and would it give the Ag Center cell phone coverage that they don't have right now. And it looks like, to me, it's a benefit to everybody. Now, there is a little, I know that those, like that piece of ground was given to us, and there may be something in there about used for recreational purposes or something along those lines, but I can't imagine that public safety wouldn't trump something like that and would be allowed as well. It seems
It's
like.
almost infrastructure.
Huh?
It's almost infrastructure.
Well, it is, I mean.
Allowing for.
Well, we had a discussion, Shelley and I participated in, regarding the cleanup of the site, TCE contamination, that the Army Corps of Engineers has been monitoring and stuff like that. And the subject came up, it was Department of Interior, gave it to the county for Parks and Rec. And the question came up in terms of what happens to that if we didn't do anything with that site and the Department of Interior took it back. I doubt the Department of Interior is never going to want it back, kind of thing, kind of scenario. So, and we haven't, it's not a park in all the years we've had it yet either. So I don't think there's a big hurry. So I can't see anybody having a problem with a cell tower on there. That's not like the cell tower's going to eliminate any
Where
use
the
of it.
county roads are, if there was some sort of if there's different verbiage in the contracts.
I think an added complication to this is the zoning code for uses, towers, basically. So that would have to be explored as well.
Well, I'll deal with planning and zoning on that. But I had a conversation with Joe Manning in Millington. She was complaining about the cell coverage up there is so terrible.
Oh, look, I have dinner with a friend of mine down in the estates periodically, and a lot of times if I forget to turn my phone off, when I come out of there, it's dead because it's constantly searching for a tower, and it is none. I mean, and it extends up the road quite a ways, and I bet you Jim can verify that you don't have very good cell coverage down there.
It's horrible. If you get on, and I live catty corner to the Ag Center, and from there all the way until you get to the intersection of like 20 and 21, if I can get a call, I lose it instantaneously. Yeah,
And when I leave there, I've checked, keep trying, and I'm clear up there to Miss Johnson's old flower shop up there before you can be comfortable with a cell phone. But
You're not supposed to be talking on your phone while you're driving.
Well, my wife was driving.
That was
But
a quick
that's,
answer.
I mean, look, that's a public safety issue.
I
All
agree.
these little nitpicking things, I mean, issues ought to be able to be taken care of when you're talking about public safety. Somebody don't, accident, nobody can get a hold of nobody. There's a million reasons that you could come up with why it's a good idea to put it down there. It doesn't cost us anything. We generate $1,000 a month for, so if we think that's something that's doable, I could have that lady come in here and speak for herself.
I would say if you give me the contact.
She's the
you can
one
sit down
done,
with her.
she actually had a bad experience building towers in Kent County when they built that one up there at Still Pond. That was a mess. And it was, just some very small handful of property owners that fought that, the building of that tower because it was gonna be so unsightly.
Is that the one we took down?
No, this one's still up there.
But I can tell you
Private
this,
property,
if
I
that's the one we're basing it off of, that one don't work very good, because I don't have very good reception around there.
Technology's improved since then, we'll say
The,
that.
the area when you leave Betterton and head up to Still Pond, that's not a good area for cell service, never has
Right,
been,
right.
yeah. Because some of the carriers are on the water tower in Betterton.
Well, I don't-
That's got Millington, does Millington have a water tower?
Yeah, the water tower, but they can't get, and there was no interest out there. I figured with
Can't
Millington.
get carriers on the water tower?
Well, the
Because
thing is
most
you-
towns just have the carriers on the water tower.
Carriers want to be on along 301. That's where their customers are.
And their tower is
Well, that's what
significantly off.
the call I got was about, that this lady was actually contacted, I think, by the Towchester Community Association, that up there, because everybody there, I mean, there's quite a number, there's probably a couple hundred homes up there in that Towchester area.
At least.
Well, not only that, the boating public out there, they're using cell
Yeah.
phones. So,
Right.
if you can give me the contact information, we can follow.
Her name is Barb Pivick. She lives in Queen Anne's County. I can get you a phone number for
Yeah, I
her. In
appreciate
fact, I
that.
got it if I can find it, but,
Just email it to me when you get a chance, Ron.
but she just called and made that pitch, and I said, I'll bring it up at a meeting, and if we decide to investigate it further, I'll have you come and speak for yourself. Because that's what their company does. Their company builds the towers, pays the landowner, and then charges the Verizon or whoever uses it.
They lease it out to
They
them.
lease it out,
Yeah.
space out to them.
No, it would be good just for our own operations and stuff like that, because a lot of our crews rely on cell phones now. It's more convenient than the radio systems, so.
One last thing. We've talked in the past about taking and tar and chipping a couple roads up there, or one road, or maybe two up there to Towchester Estates, taking it into the county. And I know from past history, the one thing we have to do is we have to get every property owner, and it can't be 99% of them, it's gotta be 100% of the property owners who own property on that, whatever road we decide to do. If we, they have to approve it. They have to agree that they'll give, I guess it's for that right-of-way purpose. It's turning it over to the county, right?
Yes, and that's one of the things, if we want to look at something like that for the next budget year, we want to budget having to do the survey, because we find with a lot of these roads that haven't been turned over, you find out from the deeds that they wander onto somebody's
And
property.
that's gonna be that, in a lot of places in Towchester Estates, it's gonna be a problem.
Right.
There's some roads up there, I think we've we've got a good chance of getting it done. But my question was, do we have a form that's prepared? I know in the past, when we took in roads, that were OP roads or whatever it was, and took them into the county, somebody from County Roads went around and had to get somebody to sign off. Is it a form that they sign
But there
to
would
give
be,
you permission to do that?
well, what we would do would be again, if you go back to the survey and whether we need to get an easement or a clearance of an easement, I'd work with Tom to have some kind of a release document or
That's
something
what
like that.
that's what I was questioning. What kind of, is it a release that's already prepared?
I think it would be a combination of saying the person is you would want to get that they're in favor of it, but we want to make sure that there may be some of these properties that the road leaned into. Now we've got to move it over, get it out of it, or we keep it where it is. And they may require some easement that we have to get from that property owner.
I guess the reason for bringing it up, I was wondering if we don't do anything this year, but if we want to try to do something next year and tar and chip in one or two of these roads, maybe we could do some work now as far as finding out, before we get into it, can we find out, get the names and addresses, I guess, through planning and zoning as far as who lives on those roads.
Oh, yeah, we could do that.
Get that part done this year, so, if we decided to go ahead and tar and chip one or two of these roads, we've got that much done anyhow.
What I'd like to try to do, if we, as far as the budget, pick a road that we're interested in trying to pursue and do some of the legwork from a survey standpoint to see what we're getting into as far as right-of-ways. Last thing we want to do is build a road and find out it's on somebody's property, and we got to take it out. So we can, and what we can do is lay that thing out so the property owners see what this is going to look like. The width of it, all those kind of things. It's a lot of times when you start paving a road, now you have drainage issues you got to deal with. So all that stuff, you kind of lay that out through the survey and then go through the property owners and try to get that interest.
Roadway of some of these roads may not match up to what was platted in this,
That's
in Colchester.
Sure.
They've migrated, or they've paved certain part, or they've traveled on this part rather than this part. So I think that is critical, getting the survey work done.
So if there's a particular interest in a road, we can start researching it to see what we got to do to deal with it, and then work through whether you decide to put some funding towards doing some of this legwork with as far as survey to see what real issues may be associated with it, or we build out into the budget for next year.
Well, the two roads that they talked about during the former board, Colchester Community Association come in here and they talked about two roads, Virginia and Ohio, and
That's
they
the ones I
actually
remember.
they actually join up together and they make a circle. And the one the Ohio part, which is the most troubled one, it actually goes down to that little beach that they have down there. So
Right.
that would be the two places, if you could take a look at them and sometime and see what you think. And then maybe next year, if we decide to do it or something, we'll at least have that much done. And if we need help, I don't know, that association, I'm sure, could reach out to some of the property owners or whatever, but I
Yeah, I
guess.
mean, it's certainly something we could easily do is do a poll in terms of inquiry with people, see what the interest is on it. But those are the two roads I remember, because I remember Ohio going down to the water.
Yeah.
And I thought there was some concern about if you made it too easy to get to the water, it would become another Betterton Beach kind of thing. That might have been some feedback there, but certainly we can investigate it and see where it's.
That beach is about as long as from here to
I
that
know.
wall back there, so I don't think it'll ever be better than beach, but
Well, you know how busy Rock Hall Little Beach can get. All right, but that, yeah, we'll look on that, put it on.
I
our
think if
radar.
you do some of the legwork now, if my memory serves me well, sometimes it doesn't, but there may be some savings in the budget that we could do something before next year's budget.
well, either way, this has got to be done first.
Okay,
And
yeah,
if you
yeah.
could take a look at that and check it out. That Virginia road, it's in one of the better roads down there. Ohio, a lot of times, we've sent equipment down there to scrape it because it's ugly to try to get in and out of there in the wintertime, which.
Well, you don't have good drainage in that area.
That's
either.
true.
Yeah.
But anyhow, if you would look at those two, see if there are two roads that we could do something with. And then if we decide to do it, we have money left over, or we do it next year, at least we've got that piece done.
Okay,
And we may not do either one of them, but
Right,
we won't be nothing out.
we can get some information for you as far as making a decision.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
One question, Another question, not for you, Mike.
Okay.
What are the plans for the swimming pools or Betterton Beach? I mean, they gonna be open through September?
No, I think they're all closed at this point. Our lifeguards have gone back to school.
And the lifeguards are gone, I believe.
So, I know Betterton Beach is, what are we doing up there? Are the people that are working there, are they done? I thought somebody told me that they were supposed to be working every weekend until the end of September or something.
Yeah, that's something Jill handles.
That's what I heard too, but yeah, Joe.
The lifeguards, I'm fairly assured are no longer reporting there. I don't know about the supervisor.
I guess what I was thinking, with the weather, the way the weather is, places like Betterton Beach, I didn't know whether we wanted to, of course, run them a little longer because of the weather, and people still seem to be piling up there to Betterton seems to be having a lot of people up there out on the beach, and I don't know, but I didn't know whether we wanted to extend that a little bit, but obviously if we don't have any lifeguards, of course, we don't have lifeguards there all the time to start with, but.
Right, I think it's Thursday through Sunday.
Yeah, with school coming back in. I mean, it's been a weird summer, we know that.
Yeah, it has. Seems like anymore, our weather's good up till November or something, and maybe beyond that sometimes.
I'll do an inquiry with Jill. She's on watch and see what she's talking about.
Very good, thank you. That's it for me.
Okay, well, I just have a few things for you, neither of which are terribly complicated. The first is yet another proclamation. This time it's Upper Shore Regional Council. They have been operating for 20 years. Upper Shore Regional Council is the local regional council for Kent, Queen Anne's, and Cecil counties. And we would like to give them a proclamation to memorialize our appreciation for their 20 years of service.
Did we notify Susan or anybody from Upper Shore Regional Council that we were gonna do this today?
She requested this.
Okay, but she's not gonna be here.
No, it's actually going to be presented at the full council meeting next month.
Now, should we read it aloud?
If you want to, you can, but you don't have to. I think it's included in the agenda.
Yeah, we'll read it to her then.
It's included in the agenda if anybody wants to read it.
Well, they have is this gonna be read at that
I'm sure.
Chester River Chester River Yacht and Country
I'm
Club?
sure she'll have somebody read it there. Second item is something we've been talking about for probably close to 7 or 8 months, and that is the legislative bond initiative timeline. In the past, these used to be called bond bills. These are requests to the General Assembly for extra capital funding. The county can submit these, I'm going to call them LBIs for the rest of this conversation, Legislative Bond Initiative. The county can ask for money, towns can ask for money, cities can ask for money, nonprofits can ask for money, and the General Assembly generally allocates some to each county based on need. Kent County government has never requested that presenters or requesters come to the county. It's almost like we've been missing a step. In Queen Anne's County, they go to the county and they present. The county commissioners give a little bit of input in the prioritization of these requests, and certainly anything that you're super supportive of, you can write a support letter, and that goes a long way with the General Assembly. If we move forward with the process, we would advertise that requesters put together their proposals this fall. They would present to the three of you. The public is also provided an opportunity to give input, and then there would likely be a work session, so the three of you and or the delegation could sort through and do a little bit deeper dive if you'd like to do. And then within November, a package could be presented to the delegation with your list of priorities or your stamps of approval on certain requests. I have talked to members of the delegation. Delegate Jacobs in particular said he would welcome the opportunity to see presentations of the request. Senator Hershey's office was overjoyed that the county would consider such a thing, because they think that it's also missing a step by not coming to the county first, since you guys are the ones with the boots on the ground. So in your packet is a list of proposed dates if we move forward with this request, with this initiative. And we can start advertising for requestors to come to the county for presentations. I'd say.
So this is more of a policy, a county policy than it is a legislative.
So it goes to the General Assembly. So ultimately, it doesn't have anything to do with our legislative process whatsoever. It has all to do with the General Assembly. It would just afford you an opportunity to give input. About 50% of the counties do something similar to this, and 50% don't get involved at all. So it's really at your discretion as to whether or not you would like an opportunity to hear the proposals. What precipitated this is last year there were millions and millions of dollars worth of requests from Kent County. And the General Assembly generally will approve a request or two or three from each county. But there was such an influx of requests from Kent County. I actually got phone calls from folks saying, what is going on in Kent County? Where are all these requests coming from? How does the county feel about these? And we weren't even a part of the process last year.
So is this just going to be like a good faith effort, or is this going to be a requirement for our delegation to even consider?
It honestly, it is up to them as to what they put forward, but they would look. They have indicated to me that they would appreciate input from you. And there was one request that was approved last year that didn't even go through our own delegation. It went through somebody else's delegation in another part of the state, and it ultimately was approved. So there's some of it that's 100%, really all of it's 100% outside of our control here at the county. But like I said.
And our people in Annapolis,
The lobbyists. They've recommended this. Mm-hmm.
Because what it comes down to, if there's, they would like, I think what they're looking for is actually for us to approve the bond bills and then prioritize them so they know what to really go after. And because if we have one that's real important to Kent County, and then there's some over here that we don't think is quite as important, it's kind of competing with the ones that we want done. And so they would like the county commissioner's blessings on which ones to really go after, I guess is.
Plus, I like the idea that we are kept informed, because it's,
I agree.
just like last year, I mean, there was one that nobody even knew about.
Well, to be quite honest with you, we as commissioners knew nothing about none of them that went
That is true.
forward last year.
I don't think a single one.
Until our lobbyists showed it to us.
I don't think a single one asked for even a letter of support
No,
last
we
year.
we weren't aware of any of them.
Some years, folks will ask
So
for
we ought
letters
to-
of support. But last year, I don't remember one request for a letter of support coming in. You gave zero input as to the LBIs. And to my knowledge, Kent County has never requested any. Or if we have, it's so far back that there's no institutional knowledge of it. But at some point, we may have a request.
I'll make a motion to move forward with the new legislative bond initiative process.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
And then finally, I have one report out item, and it's yet another proclamation for today's meeting. And that is that a proclamation was signed for Community Volunteer Fire Company of Millington, recognizing their 100th anniversary.
And it was presented?
It was read very well by Commissioner Price. He performed flawlessly.
Wonderful,
Flawlessly.
glad to hear it.
And they were very appreciative.
Wonderful. That's all I have.
Time for public comment. John, you're Mr. Public, so if you don't have nothing to say, we can ask for a motion to adjourn.
Well, no, we have two closed
I'm
sessions.
sorry, we have
I was ready to do that, too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, don't
We
give
have a
Commissioner Nickerson the
closed
opportunity for
session.
that.
So we're not going to adjourn yet, but we are going to go into closed session. I make a motion to go into closed session under the Anti-State Code of Maryland, General Provisions, Article 3-305B, 1, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, or any other personal matter that affects one or more specific individuals. To consult with counsel, to obtain legal advice, and to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation, respectively.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.